Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Little Asshole Show, episode 59. And what are today's topics of this long one?
WTF is MAGA Communism. Ron Desantis screwing over migrants. Biden wants to shut down Gitmo. Boy Malding over porn. Finland ends homelessness. Prager VS Ana Kasparian. Sex toy truck crash. Russo-Ukraine war update. And Kurzgate sets we will fix climate change video.
Alright, so I think we should talk about the main important one right now because there's been a lot of change recently, and that is the Russo-Ukraine war, which of course there's been a lot of changes even since a few days ago. So of course, in terms of the fronts, as we showed on the map, as I might even show a screenshot of what I've done found last night, Ukraine has actually expanded their salient in Kherson. As you see how like double the length, the width it has from before.
Nice.
And I don't know if that very smaller salient where I posted on the map a little bit earlier was there from last time we covered it. But of course, just recently up near Luhansk, they've broken through and have a salient right up there. If you see on the map, I have it circled because that was just that was just recently. So once again, slowly but surely, starting to make gains. Hopefully, now of course, there have been a lot of other things outside of the Russo-Ukraine war that's been going on too recently. Like just today, Russia annexed Luhansk, Donetsk, Severodonetsk, and the Kherson region, and of course, no one rightfully recognizes it, especially since two of them are contested literally at the moment.
Yep.
And and I find it funny too because remember the original before the war happened. Remember when Russia recognized Luhansk and Donetsk as independence? About that independence. Now you just straight up annexed them.
Yep.
Shows that once again, as Harry denied, that this was all just about imperialism.
Yep. And except, of course, remember that according to those people, it's only imperialism when the West does anything.
Yep. And of course, Ukraine actually officially applied to join NATO today, like how Finland and Sweden did months ago. Now, of course, I don't think they're going to be joining anytime whatsoever because they have territorial disputes and they're in an active war right now. So I don't think NATO would even consider them at all right now whatsoever. Not until this stuff is figured out. And as for Finland and Sweden, they're now both down. In order for Sweden and Finland to get into NATO, all 30 countries have to ratify that it happened. And so far, 24 of 30 did. So, getting closer for them as well. So, yeah, what you got to say about Ukraine applying for NATO now like they are?
Interesting. I don't know if it would happen, but it would be quite interesting. It would be pretty interesting.
And I mean, if you think about it, do they honestly kind of need NATO right now? I mean, they're kicking Russia's ass. They're way exceed expectations. And then, what?
Maybe not. I don't know.
And then also, of course, Putin has been threatening nuclear weapons again, as always. To the point now where, pretty much America has, regularly, having satellites across Russia to make sure they're not actually bringing them out yet. Because remember, ever since the Cold War ended, America and Russia has largely kept their nuclear weapons in storage pretty much. Not like during the Cold War where they were actively aiming at each other at all times and stuff. And America, at the beginning of the Cold War, flying planes around the world if need be to drop them on Russia. So, if Russia was actually going to use them, I'm pretty sure America and NATO would find out way beforehand and such like that.
Yep. Don't forget that half of them would not be that due to the poor quality of the military in general.
I mean, that is possible. We have seen many videos. We have seen many videos of Russian missiles backfire. I'm breaking down. Hell, I remember that one video I saw where one literally flew back and hit the launch spot, which is hilarious. So, and of course, you got to also talk about if Russia actually did consider that. First off, it would be just tactical, not throwing them at us immediately. It would be kind of like even less strong than like the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It would be like just destroy Ukraine front lines and push through, which I and many people do a lot in Hoi 4 and such. And they're nowhere near as strong, so it wouldn't end the world like that. But if they do consider, which would be suicidal, because American NATO, if you didn't see on the Kyiv Independent recently, pretty much implied if they did use nukes, they would at the minimum do a conventional war on Russia. And if Russia is seriously suicidal enough when they're struggling against Ukraine to make themselves an active priority to a point where maybe even China might actually go against them, and have all of American NATO against them, if they're struggling to beat even Ukraine, which they're not even really doing now, they're losing, they're not going to stand any sort of chance whatsoever against the West. We would crush them in weeks, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. And just recently, before we did the show, I looked up on the Kyiv Independent, and Antony Blinken, who is Secretary of State for Biden's administration, once again said that we have not seen any indication that Russia is planning on using nuclear weapons, which has been the case for every few weeks or so if you've read the Kyiv Independent like I have all the time. So, yeah, keep that up and make sure not to use them, because you're not, at this point, Russia is not winning this. It's either going to lose or they're going to lose and die. Yeah. Now, of course, Putin needs to eventually acknowledge that. Yeah. And then also recently, the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed, if you didn't know about that.
Yeah, I heard that.
So, it's been leaking methane for a few days now. It's going to probably be another week before it's finally emptied out, and they can't find out what caused the bombing until that happens. And it's pretty bad because it's leaking methane, which is one of the most potent
20 times deadly, 20 times more effective as a greenhouse gas.
Yeah, it's more potent
carbon
as a
dioxide,
greenhouse,
and it breaks down into carbon dioxide as well.
Yeah, methane is way worse when it comes to combating climate change than oil, coal, and all that. It's one of the worst. And at the end of it, it's, from what I've read, it's going to emit as much methane and CO2 in the atmosphere as Denmark produces a third of Denmark's production in a year. Now Denmark is a small country. They don't produce anywhere near much CO2 like America, but a third of that in a week, that's not good. No. And of course, who knows if it's going to have any negative effects to the environment, like an oil spill like BP back in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010, remember?
Yeah, remember that.
That's not really good for the environment whatsoever. And of course, all the idiot tankies on Twitter are blaming America the bomb.
Of course, because they're a form of American exceptionalists where they have to blame literally everything on America. Everything goes back to America.
And you know what? You want to know what their excuse is?
What?
I find this is really sad, but they're actually posting a video of Biden saying that he will make sure that the Nord Stream pipeline is eliminated, basically. What they don't point out, because I remember that video, is that Biden said this back in late January, early February, before the Russo-Ukraine war, and he was implying it in terms of political pressure on Germany to shut down, which, by the way, Germany did when Russia invaded them, Luhansk and Donetsk area.
Guess what? Guess where they're getting a lot of their gas now from?
Good old red, white, and blue.
Nope. They're getting a lot of theirs from the land down under.
That's true as well.
A lot of Australia's gas is now going to Germany.
And also Kazakhstan trying to get involved too, which pisses off Russia and all that. Yep. Now, even Kazakhstan is starting to not be under their thumb anymore, which is very fair, because the same arguments that Russia used against Ukraine also apply to Kazakhstan, since a quarter of their country is Russian.
Yep. As I said, it applies to Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia,
all of the
former Soviet stans. Honestly, as well as Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yeah, they all were part of the former Soviet Union, remember? Yep. So a lot of Russians.
Those are all the countries that Russia could theoretically take without getting into being annihilated by NATO. Well, because even though I know that I think No, hang on, which one is it? Azerbaijan, I think, is like sort of considering looking into NATO. I know Armenia is like, we're allies with Russia. We've got two countries that want to wipe us out on either side.
Yep, Azerbaijan and Turkey.
We're not sure what to do.
But yeah, who do you think? I think it was Russia that probably did the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. Like, I don't buy the arguments whatsoever that America did. There is literally no reason for America to do that. There also is no reason for Russia to do it. But you know what? The whole war was no reason to do it, and they still did it.
No,
So,
I don't think like Russia per se. It might have been like Russian backed like rebels or something. They could have damaged it.
but of course,
Like, you know what I'm getting at? Like,
Yep.
I don't think like Russia would do it like they'd do it right up front. Like they'd use their proxy groups to be like, hey, could you damage that pipeline over there? And then we'll get a bunch of our tanky buddies to claim everything, to continue their everything America does is wrong by default narrative, to blame America on this.
And it also reminds me too.
Thank you.
And I also forgot too. He did a partial mobilization like last week, where they're supposed to bring up 300,000 men, when in reality they're actually sneakily trying to bring up 1 million men to do so, and it's causing a mass immigration of Russian men across the country to the point now where they're trying to close the borders to prevent people from leaving, just like good old Soviet Union.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Like pathetic. I said, well, Putin's a fascist dictator, so they love so he would be okay with things like that. Like I said, go for the map of the Soviet Union with the politics of the Russian Empire.
So yeah, Putin, maybe you should learn to play some Hoi 4. It doesn't matter how many men you have on the front lines. If they don't have weapons, then they're completely shit. Alright, so keep winning Ukraine, keep pushing them back, and hopefully Russia does not become suicidal with the nuclear weapons, because they should know that they will die if they do that. Like, it ain't debatable. You just gotta hope that they have a little bit of sense to realize not to do that. Alright, so now, what do you want to talk about next?
I just want to go to my sex toy truck crash, because this is hysterical.
Alright, well, it's not really involved in politics, but you brought up, so what is this about?
Yes, I just had to laugh about this. So, okay, so September 14th, so this is a couple of weeks ago now. A semi-truck and a box truck crashed on the... Wait a moment. On the I-40 in Oklahoma City. Nobody was injured.
Which is good.
But because there was some all-over stuff, they had to lock it down. And so initially it was like a bunch of products were on the road, closed there. And apparently there was... One of the trucks had sex toys in it. It's carrying lube and dildos in it.
One of the trailers looks really damaged. That looks like a really serious wreck. Especially with debris all over the place.
Yeah.
And of course, at least no one was hurt and all that. It honestly would be funnier if
it
would have been funnier though if it was in Texas. We can make fun of Ted Cruz, who wants to ban him. Remember?
That would have been the ultimate poetic irony.
But hey, Oklahoma is bordered to Texas. Remember?
Yep. The stores, Adam and Eve G-Spot Touch Finger Vibes. So yes, a bunch of the items were boxes of vibrators.
Oh boy! But in the end, as long as no one was hurt, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Which is quite amazing because that trailer looks even more destroyed than if it was at a monster truck event, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because when trailers flip, guys, that is not a pretty sight. I even saw one back in 2007 when we were heading to the Ocean Sea one time. It was a very windy day. It flipped over and flipped into the ravine, into the trees, because it was so windy that day.
Damn.
And we were like several hundred feet away from it, and we heard it when it hit the ground. It's
brutal, yeah.
Because when trailers flip over, they usually rip open, release everything they have, and of course,
if they do,
and if there was a car nearby, they would probably be flattened, and whoever's in would be killed. So the fact
there have been a few cases where a truck has fallen onto a car and the person has somehow survived.
But does Australia have like actual like huge big rigs like America does? Because from what
that was we have the road trains, which I've seen at a couple of them at a couple of the train stations.
They're even bigger. They're even bigger.
Checked it.
They're bigger. That's right. I remember seeing that. Although I think your guys. Like, every time I look, like, Europe, Japan, and your guys, like, your big rigs are, like, a lot smaller looking than ours. But, yeah, those trains, they carry, like, trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer. I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. I did a check. It took 4 minutes. Like, it was going slowly because there was just so much stuff. But, yeah, 4 minutes it took for every single trailer of stuff to go by. That's pretty insane as to how big they are.
That sounds honestly kind of efficient. You should have a train do that, especially for climate change, because trucks and cars...
Yeah, a lot of our trains are electric now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not quite all of them, but I think the Belair line is still not fully electrified. But all our other lines in Adelaide are.
As we mentioned before months ago, something like this... Land transport, carrying all that stuff, leave it to trains. Trucks are for much smaller things and closer by to finish the job that trains can't do.
Yeah.
Alright, so that I think is enough for this topic. So now what do you want to talk about?
Let's go on to the is MAGA Communism. I've seen Jason Hickey mention it a couple of times.
Yeah, he even mentioned the Door, and even Door wasn't even buying it. When you lost Door, you know you feel silly.
Shit, Jacob Hickey.
And I can't remember.
Even your boyfriend.
And I think it was Mike made a video about it too, and Hickey looked so miserable when Door saying he wasn't really buying it. He looked like he was gonna cry.
That is awesome. Yeah, he tried that on He tried it on Fox News, and Tucker Carlson just looked. Was the normal, perpetually confused face.
So that's Tucker Carlson.
And
so, anyways,
and then
we actually got a a picture from, I can't remember if it was Hinkle or someone else, posting what they support, which is funny because Trumpsters are not, and MAGA supporters are not going to support this because they hate communism. Just even to name it would probably make them sick. So why even try? This is like the actual hardcore red-brown lines that Vosh talks about, but actually is correct for once, instead of the times where he makes it up. So, let's look at the topics that this MAGA communism picture supports, and let's see if we agree with it. First.
So straight off, I'm going to say this right now. Reindustrialization of America. I'm going to say it right now. They're making it sound like that the globalists, by the way, whenever you hear the word globalist, put the triple parenthesis around it.
Yep.
Because it's an anti-Semitic dog whistle.
Yep, which we're going to
They literally think that these globalists are trying to deindustrialize the world so that and force humanity to return to monkey.
But yeah, reindustrialization of America, 100% agree on that, and everywhere else too that needs it, because America economically was the best right after World War II for the next 30 years when we were the #1 industry power in the world, instead of outsource it to China. 100% agree on that. Dismantle big tech. What do you mean by that? Because I'm not fully
clarification on that.
Because I don't
clarification on that.
Because I don't trust you MAGA fuckers when it comes to big tech and what you want to dismantle or not. So you're going to have to do some more explain on that. Now, reform them maybe, or like limit their power. Yeah. End foreign intervention. Yes. Agree. Although I have a funny feeling they probably would be like against like support in Ukraine, which they need to.
They would. No. That's support. Fucking dropping a non-tactical nuke on Ukraine, because remember they think that all Ukrainians are neo-Nazis and that the Ukraine's a Nazi terrorist state.
True as well. But yeah, I support that as well. But still, guys, help.
The thing is, again, the globalist, except for the globalist, is around has the triple parenthesis around it. He wouldn't stick that in there because that'd get him banned if he did, but I can tell you now it's there. Most of these people are massively anti-Semitic.
Well, since you mention it, and globalist imperialism, which I agree with, but that also includes Russia too, which you guys fervently support.
Yep.
So again, I am against end that. I meant end it with Russia and America too. But you didn't.
As I've said, I want. They say they want to. These people say they want a multipolar world. I want a non-polar world where there's no global superpower. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, that would probably be impossible. It's either one major power or multiple, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's really no need to add the globalists on there. You should have had imperialism.
Unless you're using it as an anti-Semitic dog whistle, which is what I suspect he's doing, which will be very important when we get to the end of this.
Yep.
And you get the name behind it.
Yeah, but there was no need to add globalists on there. That's just an anti-Semitic dog whistle. It makes it look even sillier. Abolish the CIA, FBI, NSA. NSA, yes, because they're spying on us. CIA, I don't know about outright abolish them, but definitely need to reform them since they keep overthrowing government.
Deconstruct the CIA and rebuild it.
Yep, and the FBI, no need to abolish the FBI. They need to be reformed so they stop oppressing leftist groups, but they are needed for other things too. And we all know the only reason they want to abolish the FBI now is because Trump got raided last month. That's literally just it.
That's the only reason.
Because remember, they were pro-FBI until they went after Daddy Trump. So, no, these guys are not sincere on that. So, yes, get rid of NSA. CIA needs to be rebuilt. FBI just needs to be reformed. Drain the Department of Justice swamp. What is that
that's a MAGA dog whistle right there. That's definitely a MAGA related thing.
Let me guess. Want to get rid of the Department of Justice because they're going after Daddy Trump and all that. And if that's the case, no.
Probably.
No.
And they're planning to go after their other boyfriend, Adolf death sentence.
So yeah, no. Pardon January 6th protesters? No. Absolutely not. Everyone who's involved in January 6th deserves to be locked up for a long time and eat shit if you don't like it. Just like every single Republican politician who's involved with it should be impeached.
A couple of the and the ones who were involved. I mean, I don't support the death penalty, but killing a cop is a capital offense in Washington D.C. So might be a couple that might die.
But blue lives matter, except when we agree with them.
Yep. Yeah. But blue lives matter right up until they're stopping you from trying to pull a 20s Nazis.
So yeah, fuck the January 6th protesters. They can be locked up for a long time as far as I'm concerned. Fuck them. Yep. Pardon Assange and Snowden, 100% agree. Extend free speech to social media. Yes, I agree with that. Much to the leftist annoyance.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you get to go around throwing out the N-word and stuff without any sort of consequences, which we know you guys that like to bring up all the time like to do, and other slurs. Land reform, dismantle big agriculture. What the heck is that supposed to mean?
I think that's referring possibly to blowing up companies like Monsanto.
They do a lot of bad things.
I'm going to say you need to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. I've never even heard of big agriculture until I've read this. But yeah, the big agriculture does need to have some massive reforms done because they are one of the bigger contributors to both climate change and cruelty to animals, too. And both things are unacceptable. Unite with China on BRI. Absolutely no. Now, for all of you who don't know.
No, that is China. That's unite with China on Chinese imperialism.
Yes. Now, for all of you who don't know what BRI means, it stands for Belt and Road Initiative, which is China's way of buying off countries, building up their infrastructure, and putting them into a debt trap, which is, by the way, what Sri Lanka is going through right now.
Yep.
Which we should be covering in the future. No! Why the hell would America want to be subjugated to China in that way? We're stronger than them in every single way. If anything, we should do our own version of BRI, but actually be honest with it. Like what we did with the Marshall Plan in Europe, where we rebuilt Europe at the end of World War II and had them subjugated to us. we should actually be doing that and actually be honest about the counter China. Which, by the way, a Caspian Report actually did a video on like a month ago. Biden's actually doing that, so another big W.
Oh.
And also, what makes you think MAGA fuckers want to support this? They hate China to the point that they're racist against them.
They want to fucking... They're the ones that believe that pushed the first version of Plandemic back when it was split between the Plandemic crowd and the Chinese Communist Party bioweapon virus crowd. Because those two merged about 10 months ago. Merged at the start of this year. Actually, I think all three major conspiracy theories around COVID-19 merged together into this one. I am tempted to say PSYOP, because it's honestly got some of the characteristics of one. But honestly, it's just, we finally found a narrative that unites all three of our. We finally figured out a way to unite all three of our conspiracy theories into one.
Yeah, fuck China and fuck BRI. Next, ban Antifa street terrorism. No, don't ban Antifa. You can't ban Antifa and call them terrorism because they don't even meet the definition of a terrorist organization. They're just an affiliated group that anyone can just do like a protest about. And also, I don't trust you guys when you want to ban Antifa because you guys would say, we are part of Antifa.
Everyone who opposed. Remember, these guys are quote red fascists, and so that means that they think everyone who opposes them is Antifa communards-ISIS.
Yeah. So guys, even I, who doesn't really like Antifa, has never done a protest at all of any sort, I would be Antifa according to these guys, and therefore ban me from talking. Like these guys are just not trustable.
So much for expand free speech to social media, hey?
Yep. Expand stable, high-yielding energy, oil, and nuclear.
Oil, nuclear. Yep.
America already is 100% self-sufficient. It's just we sell our stuff off instead of keep it for ourselves. So we already meet that demand. But you know what? I do want to expand green energy, which would include nuclear as a last desperate need.
Nuclear is one of those where... if this was like 20, 30 years ago, it could be a possible transition one before we transition from oil and gas and that, and coal and all that, until the green stuff gets going, and then we transition to that.
Next up, leave NATO. That is not going to happen anytime soon, especially thanks to Russia.
Yeah. And of course,
Russia single-handedly
a version of NATO in the Pacific will not thing because we've still got the threat of China to Taiwan.
Yep. So yeah, as much as you want, and honestly, we are not really pro-NATO either. We don't think NATO should have expanded or anything such like that. And they've done horrible things, but this is just simply not going to happen, especially now that Russia invaded Ukraine. NATO is stronger than it's ever been in decades. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Next, mass infrastructure program. Agree.
So long as it's publicly funded, yes.
Yep. Declare major energy resources as public commodities. Depends on what you're talking about, but otherwise, maybe.
Yeah.
Banking in hands of people. You need to be more specific. Do you mean like a public bank? Which I think America's had before, so not sure about that one. Economic Bill of Rights. Well, this is something we definitely agree with. This is what FDR wanted to do. But here's the thing. MAGA fuckers are pretty much not going to agree with this, so you advocate the right thing to the people that are against it. Cut military budget. Yes. Even with Russia invading Ukraine and Taiwan starting shit, we don't need the military budget high. We need to cut it. And Europe should actually raise theirs and such like that. But we don't need to have this high military budget. And we could spend on things that are actually important, like Medicare for all and such. Protect the Second Amendment. Why do I have a feeling that when you guys mean that, you mean you're against any sort of, like, restrictions on gun usage?
Exactly. They're communist, they're, again, red fascists. So they'd want to get it there. Here's the thing, though. The increase in right-wing violence, terrorism, and that in the last 10 years. What these right-wingers don't realise, a lot of lefties are getting arming up,
Like
learning
that,
how to shoot and all that. I know,
like
for
that.
example, Vorsh is armed. I know Vorsh is armed. I know there are a few others who are as well. I think Shark is as well.
Like remember,
And a few others are armed.
like
Like
remember,
they've got guns.
like remember a month or so ago that I can't remember where it was, but a whole bunch of armed leftists actually protected some trans
Yes,
group
I
people,
remember
and
that.
Bosch covered it from an idiot
Yes.
transphobe. So yeah, you guys are just gonna make it more likely leftists will have to shoot you because you're such a threat to people. And
Yep.
and no, you can have your stupid Second Amendment while still having restrictions on guns, because no one should be able to just get a gun willy-nilly, and gun restrictions do lower gun deaths. See places in the world where they have it. But we have also talked about this before. We also need to fix gun culture. That's probably the bigger thing. Next, cut foreign aid and democracy promotion. No! What? Dude, you do know China and Russia right now are threatening democratic countries, and do I need to remind you January 6th, where you guys tried to overthrow a government because Daddy Trump lost? No! We should promote democracy everywhere and cut foreign aid. First off, foreign aid is so little of the budget. Even if you did cut it, it would not make really any sort of debt if you are genuinely want to cut because of deficit spend and all that. It's not going to make any sort of difference. And also, why? We can use that foreign aid to pressure countries to join our side. If you want aid, or if you want to keep your aid, because I said this before, I would use foreign aid as like a carrot and stick approach to force countries to adapt to Western values instantly. Oh, you want your aid, or you want to keep getting aid? Then you're going to start adopting Western values. Like you're going to start treating gays right, women, other minorities, religious groups, atheists, everything. You're going to instantly change your values overnight, no exception, or else you're not going to get your funding, or you're going to have your foreign aid cut. So yeah, both things are needed. No open borders, agree. Dismantle military-industrial complex.
Just going to point out very quickly there, though, these are the red fascists. Again, this sure, but you got to elaborate, and I think you'll find that the elaboration will probably turn us off, big time.
Dismantle military-industrial complex, agree. Promote made-in-American products, agree. Nationalize big tech, what do you mean by that?
Again, same,
What do you mean?
Again.
Literacy movement, agree. Patriotic education and woke America. So much for free speech.
So much for free speech again. So much for free speech.
First off, you guys think anything that's like even slightly anti-American is woke? Like you didn't think talking about like you think
or having women, minorities, and gays in movies.
Yeah, you all think that's woke, which it isn't. It's just a fact of the realities of American history and also capitalism. So nothing's woke about that, nor should it be stopped. And also, your guys' patriotic education is also woke. And censorship and incorrect, too. Because you want to only point out the good things America's done and never point out the bad things that they does. So, no, this is dog shit. Remove red tape. What does that mean? Because I know you guys, when you mean remove red tape, it means end regulations on the economy, which is no. It depends on what kind of red tape you're talking about. Subsidize gyms in every community. That actually sounds kind of good.
Weird. That's a weird one. Like, if it was me, I'd take gyms out and put in libraries. But that's just me, because I love libraries, and I've been to every single one in my local area, in the Onkaparinga area.
I mean, this might help me a lot, though, because I do need to work out all the time since I'm a fat fuck. Lower taxes, again, yes, but only on the poor. The rich need to get their taxes raised to oblivion.
But we know that what they mean with lower taxes, they mean it for the rich. So
deport the Bush family, Clinton family, Obama, Pompeo, Bolton to the International Criminal Court.
You can't deport them to the ICC. You can try to put them in front of it, but you can't deport them to friggin'... Where is the ICC again?
Now, when it comes to them being war criminals and charged such. I don't know about all the Bush or Clinton family, because I doubt every single one was involved, but all the main people involved, yes. They all belong in the International Criminal Court. They're warmongers. Yeah. Every one of them.
Well, I can tell you now, they probably are like literally every Clinton, literally every Obama, literally every Pompeo, and literally every Bolton.
And also...
And they probably want to deport them to literally put them into a plane and fly them over and then drop them literally out in front of the ICC in the Netherlands.
But you know what else, too? Daddy Trump goes up there, too.
Yep. In fact, at minimum, Trump and I think at least Don Jr. and Eric.
And maybe
because I know that Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka are getting sued in addition to Don himself.
And then there's also
New York.
And then there's also possibly Biden, too.
Yep.
Destroy Open Society Foundation, WEF, whatever that is, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. What is the WEF anyway?
Let's look that up. World Economic Forum.
Oh.
Oh God, this is 2030 Great Reset shit. That's 2030 Great Reset shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the International Monetary Fund has done a lot of not good things to developing countries and such.
Of course.
I don't know about the other three, but I doubt you need to destroy them. Probably need to be reformed and all that. But this one, like I said, I don't know enough to say.
Again, like I look at that and I'm seeing that's 2030 Great Reset shit right there.
All right. Dismantle Big Pharma, agree. But of course, I have a feeling that you guys are still going to be like hardcore, like anti, like vaccines and stuff like that, which is no.
They've literally just been. They're like probably like. No, considering who they are, they'd probably want to like put a bomb in the HQ of Pfizer and Moderna and literally blow up the building.
Destroy duopoly, yes. But don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon.
Yeah. But I'm going to point out something here. Right here. A lot of these people, they'd just destroy the Democrats. They wouldn't just... And then maybe a few token Republicans. They'd leave the Republicans basically untouched and just kill every single Democrat.
End debt slavery. Yes. Imprison opioid fentanyl networks. What the hell is that supposed to be?
I have no... I know what the I get roughly what their thinking is, but it's like
I don't even know what they're even getting at. I don't even know what they're even getting at.
Neither do I. Oh boy, here we go.
Protect minors from sexualization.
Sexualization, yes. i.e. encourage child sexual abuse by not giving kids the tools they need to report abuse when they're being abused. And
of course, prevent them from being sexualized by pointing out that there's nothing wrong with being gay and such. Yeah, no. Just no. Your guys' form of protect minors from sexualization is to make them homophobic and transphobic. So, no, go piss off.
And good little ignorant sheep to be abused.
Yep. Dismantle secret societies. What? If anything, that sounds like anti-free speech, perhaps?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what that is, secret societies.
CENTCOM is the United States Central Command.
Yeah,
AFRICOM is
Africa.
The United States Africa Command.
I'm sure it's military stuff, ain't it?
Yeah, it's part of the Department of Defense, so...
What's CENTCOM supposed to represent?
What?
What's CENTCOM supposed to represent?
CENTCOM?
Yeah. That's what it says, too. CENTCOM
is a corporation. It's a manufacturer of communications equipment for police, motorcycle officers, firefighters, rescue personnel, and industrial users.
Because AFRICOM... Remember, America is involved in a lot of African countries, so I'm not surprised they would have that. Yeah. And plus, helping them fight their Islamic fundamentalists like Nigeria. Alright, the next is declare NED, USAID, and NAFO terrorist organizations. What the heck is NAFO?
Declare the United States Agency for International Development. And NAFO is...
I heard NAFO...
North Atlantic thing.
I don't even actually.
North Atlantic Fellas Organization.
I have no idea what that is. I don't even know what NED is either.
I can't. Hold on. National Endowment for. So they declare the National Endowment for Democracy, the United States Agency for International Development, and the North Atlantic Fellas Organization, an internet meme and social media movement dedicated to countering Russia propaganda and disinformation about the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Gee, I wonder why they want to declare that a terrorist organization.
Because I was about to say before I got interrupted, because I've heard NAFO being used all over the place, like in the last week or so. Like, I was wondering what the hell that even is. So, yeah. So much for free speech, am I right?
Yep, again.
And
here we go.
The final
this is
one.
Where we
Arrest
can point out the
George
anti-Semitism.
Soros, Bill Gates, Fauci, all Epstein associates, criminals, and someone else I have no idea about.
Oh, Schwab. Okay, so I looked this guy up earlier.
And also,
he's the founder of the World Economic Forum.
And
again, 2030 Great Reset.
And also, more importantly, arrest him for what? You got a reason why they need to be arrested there, buddy?
2030 Great Reset conspiracy theories.
Oh, yes, your conspiracy theories. Not actual crimes they committed, though?
Yep. And notice George Soros.
Yep.
Straight away, any mention of globalist is an anti-Semitic dog whistle.
And then George Soros added into the mix, too, every time they mention him.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, they can't help it.
Yep.
Like, that's part of the anti-Semitism.
Hinkle can't stop talking about either. Unfortunately, Harry also did a lot of this too, but not as much as Hinkle did.
Yep, because he's become to some. I actually tried to point out that what he was doing by like taking what he says and then like actually being like going like full blown fucking anti-Semite about it, and he never picked it up never picked up being an anti-Semitic dog whistle. I used the triple parenthesis on him multiple times, and he never picked up that was an anti-Semitic dog whistle. That's how much of a dumb fuck. That's how much of an ignorant dumb fuck he is.
So yeah, this thing was largely cringe, although there is some things we definitely agree with. A lot of things we are just no, or they need to explain what the heck they're even talking about because we don't trust them and we have no idea what they're even talking about because they're stupid. Mm-hmm. Alright, so now that my brain hurts after reading all that BS, what is next on the list?
Well, it's time to hurt the brain even more because we've got Adolf death sentence screwing over migrants.
Vosh did a really good video on this, but it takes too long, so I think Kyle's video was more likely to be usable. So anyways, Ron Desantis recently illegally sent migrants to some other state recently. And he is being investigated now for it. So, oof, karma.
All right, guys.
Hopefully it prevents you from running in 2024 along with your daddy Trump.
All right, guys. So the other day we talked about Ron DeSantis' political stunt. He sent a jet to Texas, and then it picked up a whole bunch of immigrants and sent them to Martha's Vineyard. Of course, the idea behind this is, haha, libs owned. If you guys are so pro-immigrant, well, here's some immigrants right at your doorstep. What are you going to do about that?
Actually, as Vosh covered, the people there actually treat them very well, unlike you guys. Because us liberals actually are caring about people, regardless of their legal status, unlike you POSs.
Now, the concern all along was, hey, are you sure this is legal? Because, what did you tell those people when you picked them up with the jet? Did you lie to them? Is this kidnapping?
They did.
Is this
Vosh
fraud?
covered it.
I mean, if you're sending them under false pretenses, then there's a real issue here. Also, I mean, you're using I think it was $12 or $14 million of Florida taxpayer money for this entire political stunt.
Oof.
How was that? How were those funds allocated? How was that legit? I mean, wouldn't you need something to get through the Florida legislature to approve this in order to use that much money for political stunt like this? There's all these open questions, right? Well, it turns out there is a Texas sheriff that is not buying it and has opened up an investigation into Ron DeSantis. Now, I want to play this for you here. I will tell you there's some important facts at the end of it, And my opinion on this is that it ain't an open and shut case by any stretch of the imagination. And again, I'll explain why in a minute. But let's listen to what this Texas sheriff has to say, and then we'll break it down.
We are opening up a case with an investigation with regard to the suspected activities involving the 48 migrants from Venezuela that, as we understand it at this point, the facts of the case at this point, are that on Wednesday, September 14th, here in Bexar County in the city of San Antonio, our understanding is that a Venezuelan migrant was paid what we would call a bird dog fee to recruit approximately 50 migrants from the area around a migrant resource center on San Pedro here in San Antonio. As we understand it, 48 migrants were lured, I will use the word lured, under false pretenses into staying at a hotel for a couple of days. They were taken by airplane. At a certain point, they were shuttled to an airplane where they were flown to Florida and then eventually flown to Martha's Vineyard, again, under false pretenses is the information that we have, that they were promised work, they were promised the solution to several of their problems. They were taken to Martha's Vineyard from what we can gather for little more than a photo op, video op, and then they were unceremoniously stranded in Martha's Vineyard. What infuriates me the most about this case.
So to this point, I mean, it sounds like he's playing it very neutral, straight down the middle type stuff. You'll see now he starts to get a little more political in the speech, and again, then I'll tell you why I have question marks about this.
Is that here we have 48 people that are already on hard times, right? They are here legally in our country at that point. They have every right to be where they are.
So the reason why they're here legally is because if you're seeking asylum, there's a process you go through. And they were seeking asylum, so they have due process rights at that point in time. So that's what he means when he says they're here legally, just to clarify.
And I believe that they were preyed upon. Somebody came from out of state, preyed upon these people, lured them with promises of a better life, which is what they were absolutely looking for, with the knowledge that they were going to cling to whatever hope they could be offered for a better life, to just be exploited and hoodwinked into making this trip to Florida and then onward to Martha's Vineyard for what I believe to be nothing more than political posturing to make a point. Well, look, we all know that during a political campaign, things can get nasty, things can get out of hand.
Okay, so there you go. Now, when I first heard about this case, I thought, I really don't think that the Texas County in particular really has the jurisdiction that's needed. I mean, I get that Desantis took the migrants from Texas and sent them to Martha's Vineyard, but really when I heard about what Desantis did, I thought, first of all, that might be criminal, but second of all, if it is criminal, it's going to have to be a federal investigation, because I don't think authorities in Florida could go after him over that because it involves Texas. I don't think authorities in Texas can go after that because it involves Florida and Martha's Vineyard, which is in Massachusetts. So I think it's going to have to be a federal case in order for there to actually be any repercussions for this. Now, I don't like that fact, but nonetheless, I think that is a fact. So I think this will ultimately not succeed, but he is under investigation right now. Now, beyond that, I believe this is a separate case here. Breaking, this is from last night. Migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard sue DeSantis, alleging the relocations violated their 4th and 14th Amendment rights and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So this would be a different case, and I think fraud is one of the charges here, because again, it's not up in the air. We now know they were lied to. They were lied to in the process of being sent there. Now, initially, when a lot of these people were interviewed, I guess this is before they realized they were totally lied to, they were hopeful. They were hopeful that they're going to a place that's going to accept them. And, to a large extent, you did have Martha's Vineyard accept them and give them food and water and a roof over their head and all that stuff. But, I mean, effectively, it was under false pretenses. So, is there actually going to be accountability for this? I doubt it. But
plus, when was the last
at least
time
now you have
a governor got any sort of punishment for doing something?
Not for a while.
Some investigations into what they're doing here. Because, keep it real, this is obviously a political stunt. By the way, DeSantis also sent migrants to Kamala Harris's house. And then also we learned, credit to Judd Legum for figuring this out before anybody else, DeSantis is also sending them to Joe Biden's house in Delaware. Now, understand, DeSantis is ripping this...
We're not that far from Delaware. Weird.
...idea off of Abbott, who was busing migrants to Chicago and other big cities. And apparently Trump is furious behind the scenes because DeSantis is getting a lot of press over this, and Trump claims that he, at some point in the past, had come up with this idea first. And there's actually reporting that Trump said this, not kidding. He said, let's send immigrants to blue cities, and he also said, if you get, like, murderers and robbers and rapists, don't arrest them, bust those ones specifically to blue cities. This is the kind of, like, ruthless, partisan, and piece of shit Donald Trump is. But really, they're all assholes, man. They're all assholes. And there's so many ways to poke holes in the logic that they're using here. Again, I mean, if their position is anti-immigrant, and it is, make no mistake about it, then it's a curious thing to do to bring immigrants deeper in the country. Right? Like, doesn't that fly directly in the face of what you say you want? I mean, flip the situation. If you had a blue governor on a border state who decided, I'm going to ship immigrants from here deeper into the country into red states, I think the right would melt down and say this is like open borders madness. I mean, they say Biden does open borders even though he doesn't, right? If you had Democratic governors shipping immigrants deeper in the country, then they would definitely say this is open borders and this is anarchy and this is all this stuff. And look, credit at least to the Democrats in Martha's Vineyard, they were consistent. They say, we're pro-immigrant and we're going to help people. And then when these immigrants came, they were like, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to help them. Now, they're also pointing out accurately that this might be human trafficking and this is fraudulent from DeSantis and this is a political stunt. But to their credit, they're like, yeah, but we're going to help them because they're people and they need help, right? So, just such a douche move. I'm happy there's an investigation into DeSantis over this, but I really don't think anything is going to come of it unless there's some sort of federal investigation. And even then, it's an open question as to whether or not he would be indicted or convicted or whatever. But seems like a bad idea to let DeSantis get away with something like this because on multiple levels, it seems not only immoral but criminal. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball...
heard of it another way, then maybe he might not be quite so thing to do it in the future.
But of course, he'll probably get away with it, which should be helped to stop him in 2024.
Because he's a congressperson and a Republican.
Alright, so now, on to the next topic.
That would be Biden wanting to shut down Gitmo?
Yes, I find this very surprising, and I haven't watched this video yet, but Biden apparently might be shutting down, or according to the title Kyle put up, Biden quietly moves to shut Gitmo down. Okay, then, let's see what Kyle says about this then.
Here we go, y'all. Here we go. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Biden administration quietly steps up effort to close Guantanamo. Special representative named to oversee efforts to transfer detainees out of military facility in Cuba. This is what we like to call a dark Brandon moment. That's what this is right here.
Yep.
Look, if you get a situation now where they say the Iran deal is on the brink of being revived, if you get that and he closes Guantanamo in a short time span before the next election... Now, I'm not naive enough to think that these particular issues are motivating voters, right? Because they're not. It's just, I mean, I wish they did, but they don't. It'd be so based if he closed Guantanamo and got back in the Iran deal. That would certainly make me and other principled lefties go, oh, shit, that's what's up. So it's not animating voters, but it would be two more big victories that further solidify Biden's
and do something
reputation
Obama
now
promised
as,
and never
in my
did.
opinion, better than Obama.
Exactly.
I think he's already surpassed Obama.
I remember when Obama first became president in 2009, he signed all the papers or whatever that would shut down Gitmo within a year, and 13 plus years later, still hasn't happened.
So
Exactly.
here's what they say. This is the first time I'm reading this article. We're going to learn about it together here. The Biden administration is revamping its effort to close the Guantanamo Bay prison, for the first time appointing a senior diplomat to oversee detainee transfers and signaling it won't interfere with plea negotiations that could resolve the long-stalled prosecution of alleged mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 4 co-defendants. After taking a low-profile approach to the matter for the first year of his term to avoid political controversy, President Biden is moving to fulfilling a campaign promise to shut the facility.
Do you remember Biden saying he would shut down Gitmo? I don't remember that.
I don't either.
I think if he did, I think Kyle would have said that and talked about it. I don't remember that at all.
Familiar with the matter said. The facility at the U.S. Navy base in Cuba was set up in January 2002 to house alleged foreign terrorists captured overseas.
And not only that, guys, that was land we stole from Cuba when we freed them in the Spanish-American War. Not only should it be shut down, we should give that territory back to Cuba.
Guantanamo has held nearly 800 men since then. Only 36 detainees remain at the facility today after hundreds were returned home or resettled in third countries by George W. Bush and Barack Obama administrations. The newest detainee arrived in 2008. Some of the men have been held for 2 decades. 9 of the remaining detainees are defendants in military commission proceedings, including 5 accused of conspiracy, murder in violation of the law of war, hijacking or hazarding a vessel or aircraft, and terrorism in the September 11th case. So let me pause here to tell you guys, Guantanamo should have never been opened in the first place.
We should never even have, because it used to be part of Cuba, and then we stole it from them when we freed them.
Constitutional. It is extrajudicial. This means we don't believe in human rights. We don't believe in the Magna Carta to do something like this. Everything is supposed to be justice is blind, follow the law, even if sometimes it makes you uncomfortable. That's how you're supposed to handle this stuff.
And we also did torture there, too, leading up to the Iraq War.
And what happened with Guantanamo was particularly egregious because Dick Cheney and George W. Bush cut a deal with warlords in Pakistan and Afghanistan and said, hey, we were just attacked here on 9/11. If you guys know anybody who's part of Al-Qaeda, send them to us. Because we want revenge. We want retribution. We want to get back at these people. And guess what? It turns out warlords in Afghanistan and Pakistan are not the most trustworthy sources. So what did they do? They rounded up their own political enemies and shipped them to us. And we ended up locking people up who were totally innocent of any wrongdoing. And we locked them up illegally for years. I remember one of the first videos I ever did for Secular Talk, for this YouTube channel, was about a guy named Murat Kurnaz, who is a German citizen, totally innocent of any crime. And he was locked up and tortured, and he was at Guantanamo Bay for years. Actually, to be fair, I don't know if it was Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo. I think it was Guantanamo. He was there for years. And the German government needed to intervene to say, that's our citizen, give him back to us. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing here. There's no trial. What are you doing? What are you doing? So that's what we're talking about with Guantanamo Bay. The whole reason we have due process is to make sure the government gets it right. They can't just lock you up willy-nilly because they feel like maybe you did something wrong or they heard from somebody else maybe you did something wrong. You have to prove it. There needs to be evidence. And Guantanamo Bay was the opposite of that. Evidence, schmevidence. They don't care about that at all, not even the slightest bit. And so it was a crime. It was a crime from the beginning. Abd al-Rahim al-Nashiri has been charged with perfidy. I don't even know what that means. Murder in violation of the law of war, terrorism, conspiracy, and hazarding a vessel in planning attacks on 3 vessels, including the 2000s bombing of the USS Cold that killed 17 sailors. Okay, so my understanding is that when we had 800 people there, 80, 90% of them were innocent, never did anything wrong. Now we're at the point where the people who remain, there's pretty good reason to believe that they're guilty, right? So what do you do now? Well, I think the step they're going to take is military commission, present the evidence, and then find them guilty for real and put them in a real prison. Okay, but that should have been done years ago, dog. But look, at least they're doing it now, right? Better than nothing. 4 detainees are being held indefinitely without charge because authorities consider them a security risk. 20 others have been cleared for transfer by review board, including defense, intelligence, and law enforcement officials. But moving the men out has proven harder than the Biden team expected, the people said. Some critics of the Biden administration's actions on closing the prison, both within and outside the administration, say newer crises have been occupying the national security staff, and the potential for being branded soft on terrorism has slowed the administration's efforts, they say. See, now here's the thing that drives me crazy. Of course the right's going to melt down, and they're going to lie, and they're going to lie, and they're going to lie.
Conservatives are always lying. They're always bunch of crybabies. Everyone remember
like they said,
that.
soft on terrorism.
Yep.
He's not going to keep America safe. This is not right. And just call it for what it is. It's a lie. This is the exact reason, by the way, that Joe Biden is not releasing the money that is belongs to the Central Bank of Afghanistan back to the Central Bank of Afghanistan. Because he's afraid that the Republicans are going to say, Joe Biden funding the Taliban to the tune of billions of dollars. And that's not true. That is Afghanistan's own money. We had no right to take it in the first place. We didn't.
Exactly.
And by the way, if you release that money, what's going to happen? The people of Afghanistan are going to have a meal. Right now,
that's another thing, too, to criticize Biden on. He's still, ever since we left Afghanistan, he still has the embargo on food to Afghanistan. So now they're basically having a famine, which, if anything, would help make the Taliban stronger. So, yeah, that's something Biden's doing that's very wrong. And that is something that he should maybe consider being sent to the ICC for, as we mentioned before.
Arvin, there's a famine. Millions of people are being crushed as a result of these sanctions, and the U.S. government not returning their money to them. And so it's all for optics. I'm afraid I'm going to be called soft on terrorism, so I'm not going to do it. Fuck that, man. Do the right thing.
Yeah, these people
for once.
are going to call you no matter
and
what.
You want them
Dude,
to...
the fucking conservatives call Biden a fucking socialist and communist, even though he's literally
no matter what.
He's not even a progressive. Like, they're going to call you that no matter what. So just tell them to go fuck off and die.
Go all in and act like you're soft on terror. Let him babble about that. That's not going to motivate voters anyway. It's not true, number one. Number two, it's not going to motivate voters anyway. What he's doing now, ironically, is the thing that should really potentially get him impeached. Because this is the crime. The crime is starving an entire country to avoid bad optics. Because getting out of Afghanistan, getting all the boots on the ground out, that was unquestionably the right thing to do.
And he
I don't care what any idiots in the media say.
I still blame that's the reason why his approval rate went so massively down since then. Because the mainstream media kept lying about him leaving Afghanistan. Which was 100% one of the best things he did.
What do they want? To stay there forever? Whenever we pulled out, the country was going to collapse.
Yeah,
what do you want to stay there forever?
Kyle covered it before. A lot of people that did criticize Biden for leaving Afghanistan, they really did want America to stay there forever.
Fuck that. No. So they were right to pull out, but they're wrong to starve the country and withhold their money from them. The White House is seeking to avoid the kind of backlash that stymied Mr. Obama's plans after his high-profile calls to shut the prison down. Congress responded to the Obama administration's effort to close the Guantanamo prison in 2010 by passing a ban on the transfer of Guantanamo detainees to the U.S. Quote, the administration doesn't want to look like it's soft on terrorism and is awaiting a political consensus. That's never going to happen. And Harvey Rishikoff, a former head of the Military Commission's apparatus, who helped draft a recent report on closing the facility from the University of Pennsylvania Center for Ethics and the Rule of Law. Mr. Biden's new special representative position, the critics also say, lacks the clout similar offices had under the Obama administration, where Guantanamo envoys had direct access to the Secretary of State. The new special representative, Tina Kadenow, a former ambassador-at-large for counterterrorism, has been placed further down in the State Department hierarchy, they say. A State Department spokesman said Ms. Kadenow was unavailable for comment. The Defense Department is moving ahead with a Donald Trump-era project building a third courtroom at Guantanamo Bay at a cost of $4 million, even though no additional trials are expected at the naval base. A military commission spokesman said an extensive expansion of Guantanamo's trial facilities, including a new courtroom, would allow military judges to hold simultaneous multi-defendant lengthy trials. Okay. So look, the way that sounds to me at the end there is that he's not sold on doing it. So I don't know if the Wall Street Journal's report here is accurate, that he is a low-key trying to shut it down and he's getting the ball moving on that, or if it's all just a show and ultimately he's going to do nothing. I would not be surprised to see that go either way. But what I will say is, we've seen on drone strikes, for example, Biden has been way better than any of us thought he would be, because he has significantly reduced drone strikes. Now, some of the data suggests he literally stopped doing drone strikes. I'm not sure I buy that, because I think the disclosure rules at the end of the Trump era changed, so he could be doing strikes, but not really reporting it officially in the data. I don't know the answer to that, but at the very least, there was a massive reduction, because we get almost no new reports of drone strikes when we got them all the time, when Obama was doing them and when Trump was doing them. So, at the very least, he did the right thing on that front. If he gets back in the Iran deal and he closes Guantanamo, that would be, add that to the list, dog. Add that to the list of decent things, and I'm still going to have to go with the nickname Bare Minimum Biden, but 2 or 3 more things on top of that, and all of a sudden, he ain't even bare minimum anymore, dog. He's more than bare minimum. Because you guys know the list that we've gone through. You guys know the new policies. The most base thing the Democrats ever did, they stuck it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court overturned the ability of the EPA to regulate carbon emissions. They said you're not allowed to do that. And what did the Biden administration do? They slipped into the IRA, defining carbon emissions as a pollutant, and then that now allows the EPA to regulate it again. incredibly based. 15% corporate minimum tax rate, incredibly based.
It's called
64 billion, dollars
Yep.
more for Obamacare, incredibly based. Negotiating some lower prescription drug prices, semi-based, because they really should be negotiating all drug prices, right? But I guess some mansion or cinema or some corporate ghoul threw a wrench into that one, but we got some.
Mansion and cinema.
I mean, the list goes on and on here. $6,000 or $7,000 tax credit for electric vehicles. Incredibly based.
Remember, Vaughn said we overreact about them all the time?
And remember that the doorknobs don't the doorknobs don't go after mansion or cinema either.
The PACT Act, based.
They just bash the squad.
Semi-based, because the specifics of it are concerning, and Bernie Sanders has pointed out it's possible that they pass this bill and the chip manufacturers don't deliver on the promises that are on paper. If that happens, I'll be the first to tell you, and I will be incredibly pissed off and against it, but bringing microchip manufacturing back to the U.S., based. And we need to do that. If it was a different bill or this bill, we had to do it, right? So that's good. There's a whole bunch of stuff we could point to now, you know? The lesser evil vote, which, by the way, I didn't even make because I'm in New York, so I didn't vote for Biden. But for people who did, looking like it was the right move now. Especially with, he signed the executive order to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for hundreds of thousands of federal employees and federal contractors. These are things Trump never would have done in a million years. And so, look, let's hope it continues. But honestly, on the Guantanamo thing, I'm 50-50 after reading the specifics of the article, if it will happen. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all...
So yeah, what you gotta say about that? Biden might be shutting down Gitmo, which would be incredible.
It'd be good if it was, but again, it's I'm not sure about it.
Alright, so now, what do you want to talk about next?
Benny Boy Malding over porn.
I'm not surprised. That's all conservatives cry about is fucking porn. Oh, and Candace Owens in the mix too. Oof! Two stupid idiots all in one. Alright, let's see how porn's destroying society next time. What's next? Video games? Pokemon? Oh wait, you've already blamed them for everything too.
Alright guys, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun here.
Maybe Benny Boy just doesn't like porn because he can't get wet-ass P-word.
Ben Shapiro had on
exactly.
Candace Owens, who has a new Daily Wire show. And the title of the video is How Porn is Destroying Society.
No.
A little bit of an overstatement, wouldn't you say? I don't know. I think that goes...
Not only an overstatement, just straight up incorrect.
Porn is destroying society. All right, so let's hear this, this edgy... young, appealing.
Prepare your ears for the ear rape that is Benny Boy's
Candace
voice,
Owens, she
too.
requires no introduction. Of course, she's the New York Times best-selling author, founder of Blexit. She's host of the brand new show Candace Owens, named after her, obviously.
By the way, I have them on 1.25 times speed here, which makes Ben Shapiro sound like
Kyle,
he's on triple
don't torture
speed.
us even more.
So just warning you up front.
Yeah.
Daily Wire Plus. First of all, Candace, congratulations on the show. It is soaring up the charts.
I'm very excited about it. It's just
her show is rising to the charts, however, mostly probably because of money and not actual genuine support, because nobody honestly likes these fuckers.
Feels like the right move to go 5 days a week.
Well, I mean, obviously, the audience agrees, given the numbers that we've been seeing. So let's talk about some of the stuff that you've been talking about on the show. So you did an episode yesterday about the normalization of pornography in the culture. It's the stuff that you can do better than pretty much anyone else. Because, number one, if I talk about the normalization of pornography in the culture, I'm a sexist. If you talk about the normalization of pornography of the culture, then you're a feminist. So it's good.
I would argue, if you talk about how porn is destroying society, you're an idiot. And if she talks about how porn is destroying society, she's an idiot. That's my breakdown.
Kyle,
really
you might be called racist or sexist for
that. No, that's irrelevant. It's just a goofy thing to say because it's not true.
And Benny Boy might call you anti-Semitic because he likes throwing that word out a lot.
Yep.
Well, I will say, Ben, I did take a page out of your book and I dropped a couple of bleeps because it was just way too expletive. I went bleep, bleep, bleep. But I was just sort of talking about where we're headed towards, and it was a conversation that I was having with my husband about pornography. My husband completely abstains from social media, and if you ask him, he just casually says, because it's all pornography. And he's talking about Instagram, he's talking...
Candace, I hate to tell you this, your husband does not abstain from pornography. You might think he does. He certainly does not.
And also, who would want to abstain from porn being around you? Oh, jeez. Porn would be like the only saving grace. Jeez.
about Facebook. He's talking about opening up a page and looking at the Daily Mail. But we've become so desensitized to it. So when I'm on Instagram, I don't even pay attention to the fact that actually, yeah, no, there's just nothing but butts and people's tits on the internet at all times. But we've become increasingly as a culture saying that this is okay. And so I wanted to have that discussion about pornography. I was listening to a Catholic podcast.
Listening to a Catholic podcast. Sounds like fun. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do about that? So look, I agree. You go to Instagram, you go to almost any social media outlet, and there are a lot of thirst trap pictures and people showing titties or ass or whatever. And
there also is a filter where you can go into send so you don't see those tweets or posts or anything of the sort. Like that is possible. You can block that. And if you really don't like it, I don't know if it's the case on Instagram, but you can always on Twitter you can always just block people so you can't literally see their tweets whatsoever. Like, there are options for you to ignore it if you don't like seeing it.
Now, I think most of the time they are covered, right? Like, it's not full frontal nudity on all these social media platforms 24/7. Maybe some of them have some percentage that are like that, but it's mostly people covered, right? People just trying to make themselves look sexy and airbrushing the shit out of it and all that stuff, right? I agree. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do about that? There is no solution that you can describe as non-authoritarian. If you want the companies to say our new policy is you can't post anything that's even remotely sexual, even if you're covered, okay, well, that's an authoritarian policy from the social media outlet.
And also, deep down, even if they did do that, these people would not be satisfied. Let's be honest with that. They would not be satisfied at all, because that's not enough for them.
If you want the government to say you can't do that, that's an authoritarian policy from the government. If you want to just culturally change the norm and the zeitgeist so that people willingly don't do that, well, that's not going to happen. And I have a bridge to sell you if you think that is going to happen.
If anything,
so what do you want to do about
people
it?
Be
or do you just want to like bitch and moan about people trying to be sexy on social media? Which, hey, fair enough, right? But then why are we even talking about it? Because there's bigger fish to fry, more important things to talk about.
Conservatives talk about things that are important.
We're talking about how even the seeds that are being planted on porn websites, which I did visit yesterday, are all incestuous. And of course, it brought me to the conversation about Kim Kardashian, who has been in the news recently for something which is so abhorrent, if true, and it looks like it is true, that she actually orchestrated her own sex tape. Her mother sat there and watched the sex tapes, and it was a complete PR move. And they released the tape.
Who cares?
I watched Ray J's meltdown over this in his live stream on, what was it, Instagram? His argument is, it was Kris Jenner who was steering the ship. So, she's the one who wanted them to shoot another sex tape, and she wanted to pick the best one and leak the best one that'll help their careers and all that stuff.
It's just creepy.
But really, the argument there is not about the moral decline of
That's true.
the country or anybody or anything. It's about a greedy capitalist trying to exploit her own daughter for profit and fame. That's what that is. So, one of the things you guys love the most, capitalism, is really one of the main things to blame here, right?
Everything good about it.
That they thought was the best out of
Everything
three that
good
they
is
had
capitalism,
for shoot, according to
everything
the
bad
man
is
in the film, Ray
socialism.
J.
I mean, that's an unbelievable story. And of course, it gets completely ignored by the mainstream media for being disgusting. Instead, if
it's ignored because we don't care.
I didn't see it ignored.
Yeah,
actually, you know
exactly.
what? Maybe it wasn't in big publications. Maybe it was ignored, but it was certainly.
I don't care if a celebrity has
it was
sex
viral
tape
on Twitter.
Or whatever.
That's how I stumbled across it. I saw Ray J was trending. I clicked it. I watched one of his live streams, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is crazy." And they had a contract and everything with one of the big porn companies, and Ray J was showing the receipts, and he was like, "Look, this is what happened." And Kris Jenner was the one who was steering the ship the whole time. And again, his argument was we were exploited by Kris. Kris wanted more fame for the Kardashians, and again, lay it right at the feet of a greedy capitalist like Kris Jenner, a manipulative, greedy capitalist.
It's sort of in the subculture of the internet, because you're not allowed to report that Kim Kardashian has obviously exploited her body for money. I mean, the way that she became famous was these sex tapes. Now it turns out, according to Ray J, that Mommy Kardashian was actually watching the tapes and helping to select which one she apparently looked best in. And it's not as though Kim Kardashian has cooled it recently. I mean, she recently appeared on the cover of Interview magazine wearing nothing on her bottom. I mean, this sort of stuff you're
okay.
So who cares?
See, now we're talking about this is years later. She's an adult. She's in, her 30s? And if she wants to do that photo shoot, she can fucking do that photo shoot. What's the problem here? Again, unless you want to set a policy to have the government ban anybody showing naked body parts, or have the magazines say, we're going to ban anybody showing body parts. I don't know what the beef is here. What's the beef?
Right, has been completely normalized throughout the culture. This is a long process. I wrote a book in, I think, 2004 called Porn Generation about how pornography was being absolutely mainstreamed, how people...
Ben Shapiro wrote an anti-porn book in 2004.
Exactly.
Holy shit, we should totally read that and laugh at it. Oh my god. Ben Shapiro wrote an anti-porn book in 2004. How did I miss this? How the hell did I miss this? This is glorious.
did you not
who
know
had been porn stars
that?
are now being made into mainstream cultural figures. Now they're being made into mainstream cultural political figures. But you know, it takes people like you to say this sort of stuff.
Right, I think it's really important, and what I always want to do with my show is further those cultural conversations.
Exactly.
Because I think in the past, conservatives have sort of looked at culture and said, well, it's not important, let's have a more intellectual discussion. But as
Conservatives have never, ever, 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 ever said that. They've always been all in on the culture war. Evangelical Christians have dominated the cultural conversation for a generation. By the way, the roots of the religious right, the fundamentalist religious right, it was birthed in opposition to desegregation. How many of you know that? And then, of course, it morphed over time to anti-gay politics animating that movement. They've always been all in on the culture war. It's this unholy alliance, no pun intended, of the laissez-faire free market capitalists, the libertarians, the anarcho-capitalists, that mentality, the corporatists, that mentality married up with social conservatism for an alliance of convenience to win political power, to, you know, enact their agenda. And largely, the result has been the economic right has won. We're deep in the neoliberal era, but the social conservatives have lost. You know, we have gay marriage. Well, I guess now with the rollback of abortion, you could argue they notched a victory there, right? But they've always been all about the culture war. Are you kidding me? What a ridiculous point to make, man. Holy shit. Oh, the conservatives want to have a more intellectual discussion. What are you talking about? What intellectual discussion? What's their position on literally any economic issue ever? Cut taxes for the rich and deregulate. Doesn't matter what the specifics are. That's our answer. I forgot what the question is. The answer is this. In no realm do they want to have an intellectual discussion. And again, on social issues, it's let's be more authoritarian. Let's have big government direct people's lives and say what they can and can't say, can and can't do, what body parts they can and can't show. What a joke, man.
You know, your late mentor, Andrew Breitbart, said politics is downstream from culture. So a lot of times we're looking around and we're saying, how are we even having this debate about whether or not, you know, children have the autonomy over their bodies, and whether or not, which we are literally having a debate about right now, you know, pedophilia is okay, right? People are saying, oh.
Who the fuck's saying pedophilia is okay? Who is saying that? Is the argument that this is like a mainstream left position?
The only person I know
that
ever did was Amos Yee, but that's it.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean,
dude. You think they know about it? About the existence of Amos Yee?
They're such charlatans.
They probably support him.
Children can pick their gender. Children can be sexual beings. Well, these conversations are happening.
By the way, let's be clear. Let's be clear. That's not the only debate going on. There's another debate going on about trans issues. And now some people are out of the closet on the right as, I don't think anybody should be able to transition. Anybody. So you have Matt Walsh, who did the What is a Woman documentary. He said on Twitter, it went pretty viral, he was like, we should basically ban all transition surgery, even for adults. You know, I asked Jordan Peterson, would you ban it for adults? And his answer was, I don't know. So this idea that it's just about the kids, that is definitely
and
not
also
true.
kids aren't
definitely not true. There are many
like the
on the right
are.
Who want to ban it for adults
At
too.
most, they socially transition.
Yeah.
Now that's something you don't want to bring up, because that even many in their own audience will be like, that's a little extreme. You know, body autonomy, freedom, liberty.
Unless it's an abortion,
these things matter,
of course.
right? Apparently, it doesn't when it comes to social issues. They want to be as authoritarian as humanly possible. Just like they're talking about how porn is destroying society now. And what would you guys like to do about porn destroying society? Would you like to ban it?
Hey, what China did 20 years ago.
You be honest about that. You should say that.
Sexual assault against women rose dramatically afterwards.
The video is how porn is destroying
whammy
society.
with two things they like.
Happening because of what's going on in the culture. And so it's important that we attack that and that we call it wrong and that we call it, in the case of Kim Kardashian, satanic. Because as I just became a mother to a daughter, you had daughter.
Satanic? Do you mean that literally, Candace Owens? Satanic. So what, Kim Kardashian is possessed by a demon? Kris Jenner is possessed by a demon? Well, I got news for you. They're not.
Why do I feel like I'm watching a religious fundamentalist talking about Pokemon now?
The capitalism mind virus. I will
because
exploit my daughter for
there are
profit
people
and
that
fame.
are still doing that.
We got nothing to say about that. Nothing at all.
Why do these idiots hate good
Could
fame?
you even imagine the concept of selling, quite
because
literally
they're
selling your daughter's
perpetually
body
unhappy
for fame, when they were already a wealthy family? They had everything that they ever needed to be happy and to be successful, and yet it wasn't enough because fame was too tempting. I mean, it's really sickening stuff.
The mainstreaming of pornography really is an amazing story, because the fact is that back in the 70s, the feminist movement said pornography is exploitative, because it obviously is. It's
yeah, and those feminists were stupid because they were sex negative, sex positive feminism all the way. If women and men too want to be involved in porn, they should be allowed to. Same goes for prostitution and all the other things. So all those second-wave feminists, however, can eat shit.
Okay, so there are sex-negative feminists and sex-positive feminists. Sex-negative feminists said that's exploitation of a woman's body and we don't like it, we're against it. I disagree with that. There are many feminists who disagree with that. There are many non-feminists who disagree with that. Fundamentally, it's a matter of freedom. Now, you want to say, hey, let's change the economy. So there are no people who feel like I have no other options and they're kind of like softly forced into the realm of sex work to pay the bills because they have no other marketable skills and
sadly I don't think that's going to change unless you got rid of capitalism.
And so they feel like the only thing I could do here is OnlyFans. The only thing I could do is be a stripper. You want to change the economy
in the end,
so
if they need the
nobody
money,
feels
they are
forced
going to be
into that
to do
field?
it. That's
I'm
their only
totally
option.
with that. 100% with that. But even in a scenario where we have a close to a utopian society where everybody's economic needs are met, there's still going to be some people who actively choose to be in the sex industry. And to them I say, God bless.
Yep.
Because, their argument only makes sense if you really internalize and believe to your core that sex is shameful and bad. It's just not a good thing.
Though.
The second you acknowledge that many people are sex positive and they enjoy it and they like it, well, then you realize, if you want to free of your own volition, go into any one of these fields, by all means, go right ahead. But he doesn't believe that.
To the worst in men, it is pandering to male desires. It is causing women to have to exploit their bodies in order to get attention. This is all bad.
You think only men are interested in porn? You know there are women who look at porn too, right? It's not just men that look at porn.
And then the feminist movement shifted in the 80s and 90s, and suddenly pornography
also, it's a denial of the most obvious thing about human nature, right? Sexuality is one of the most obvious things about human nature, and it's just a complete disregard for that being a real thing.
Empowering. In fact, you'll have Hillary Clinton going around the country and doing TV series on gutsy women, and the people that she's interviewing very often are people who are exploiting their bodies, obviously, for fame and fortune. It's an amazing shift. And meanwhile, you have an entire, I would say it was subpopulation, but I would imagine now it's probably approaching a majority of the male population of the United States that, if not addicted to pornography, uses pornography regularly.
Oh my God,
certainly a majority use
again?
pornography regularly. Are they addicted? Depends on your definition of addicted. But again, it's like saying, these people eat every day. They like food. Are they addicted to food? No, that is one of the most natural things you could do is eat food. Another thing humans are naturally very interested in, the overwhelming majority, there's some small percentage that's asexual, but the overwhelming majority are interested in sex. And so the moral condemnation and the shame around it, it's all manufactured from a very far right perspective. It is so goofy.
And has this made men stronger? Has this made marriages stronger? And then we look around and the media are decrying toxic masculinity. It's like, well, you guys really created the forces that unleashed a lot of this.
Right, and it's funny, you ask those questions and they're very important to answer. Has it made men stronger? Has it made families stronger? Well, that was the point, right? The feminist movement has nothing to do with women. It has nothing to do with trying to help women at all. They just like to still use the word feminism so that you can't attack it, right? Or else you're a sexist and you hate women. But in reality, it's actually...
Wait, I thought you guys said you were making a feminist argument here. Now all of a sudden feminism is bad and wrong?
Conservatives being
harming
stupid,
women, harming families, and the reason for that is because it helps the government. And at the end of the day, in order for a government to grow in the capacity that it wants to grow and to be omnipotent in our lives, it needs to make sure that it is routinely denigrating the idea of the nuclear family unit, which stands in the way.
It's not denigrating the nuclear family, but promoting
that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is all a plot because the government wants to grow or something, bro.
And that's what we're talking about on the show. Pay attention to the various ways that they are attacking the family. It's through pornography. When I was in school, and this is a really horrible thing.
Okay. Now, I'm sure maybe even the majority of people who use pornography have their own family. This is not it's not some either or. Look at this false dichotomy they're putting in front of us here.
There are married couples that watch porn to get it
that partaking in pornography as a observer of pornography, watching porn was a healthy thing. I learned about this in health class. It's a good...
She 100% did not learn this in health class. This is utterly made up. I don't believe this for a fucking second. I don't believe it. And by the way...
Unless they think even teaching basic sex stuff is porn, which these are fucking far-right track cons, so they do think that.
They literally believe that anyone that teaching... that they have to keep the kids in the dark so that they can abuse them.
Can we agree on this? There should be such a thing as health class, where indeed they talk about things like sex. Because kids are getting to the age where they're old enough where these things are going to happen one way or the other, and you'd like to have some reasonable guidance so there aren't huge mistakes made, like babies when you're in 9th grade or some shit, right?
good thing for your relationship for you to sit in a room, do something shameful, and observe other people having sex on the internet. I learned that. Think about what that really says about the state of things in school. Now that I'm an adult, I want to make sure that I'm having these conversations for young people to know that that's actually not correct. What you're learning in the public school system is not correct. And what they're trying to do is turn you into basically a government slave, because your families will be ruined and you will have nothing.
Government slave?
What's he talking about?
Oh, the government's trying to turn you into a government slave.
This is Candace Owens.
It's
She's
amazing
literally
that there's any
a
market
grifter.
for this absolute lunacy.
She's a grifter in every sense of the word.
Of real substance and of real value, and it's because I believed these far left ideologies.
We'll get some more.
Okay, now this is an ad because Ben Shapiro can't go more than 6 minutes or 7 minutes without doing an ad. Come on, dude. Anyway, there you have it. This is so goofy, so goofy. I don't know how anybody takes this seriously. And by the way, over 90% of the people who are hitting like on this video probably beat off within the past 2 days. So spare me this moralizing nonsense. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe.
A little bit more. But yeah. Porn is destroying society. No. If anything, it's the opposite.
35,985th time.
So, Steve, get over it. There's nothing wrong with porn, so cap. Alright, now, what's the next topic?
That will be Finland ending homelessness.
Which is very based. Let's see if I find, because unfortunately I think I forgot to put the video on here, so I think we might have to go on to the next topic until I find it. So.
Oh, okay.
So next up.
I guess we can move on to Dennis Prager versus the Young Turks.
Yeah. So Dennis Prager is the main person that runs PragerU. We've made fun of him before. He's really stupid. And he goes on this crap like a whole bunch of conservatives do, where, the left are scared of us. They don't debate us whatsoever, and stuff like that.
But of course, the reality, it's the other way around.
Well, back then, because I think, it was Vosh earlier, because I watched Prager's debate with Ana on Vosh's channel, because that was kind of more like the case in 2016, where they did not actually want to debate these idiots.
Yep.
Now it's the other way around, where these people, where TYT, Sam Seder and all them, they do want to debate Prager, and Vosh too, but they always chicken out, because the conservative fuckers have a little bit of a brain to realize they're going to get obliterated if they do it. And Cenk and Ana, but this one was about Cenk. Ana debated him on, feminism, basically. Cenk debated him on secularism and separation of church and state in America, because America is a secular state, everyone. So, let's watch Kyle talk about this one, and watch how stupid Prager is.
So, Sam Seder has been trying to debate Dennis Prager recently.
Which, actually, you wanted to bring up. Maybe we could bring up next time about his debate with Ana. But I thought this one would be more, in-depth, since Sam, I don't think, really is good at doing, in-depth videos like Kyle.
Dennis Prager likes to make this whole show about, bro, nobody on the left even wants to, debate me, bro. Us right-wingers, we want lefties on our shows, and they just don't want to come on our shows, bro, and it's because they're scared of us in, the marketplace of ideas, where we're gonna, run roughshod over them, bro. So they're just trying to do self-preservation. They don't want us to prove that they're idiots, so all the lefties are, staying away from our shows. And by the way, that is comically absurd. It is not at all true. Dennis Prager, just so you understand, Sam Seder has been itching to debate you. He smugly sort of swatted him aside and acted like, you're not big enough.
That was the same excuse Crowder did,
Sam Seder would love to debate you. Vosh would love to debate you. Ben.
Which is hilarious, because remember, Crowder was the one that he won't debate Seder, but he will debate college students. Gee, I wonder why.
Burgess would love to debate you. As you saw here, Ana Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, they did debate you. I would love to debate you. We're not scared of you, bro. We're not scared of you. I think you're really goofy. So anyway, he's been doing this macho man posturing, which is totally unfounded. And so he did end up going on TYT. Ana did a long interview with him. You guys should go check that out. Or long debate, I should say. And then apparently there was a bonus episode where they did a much longer discussion with him. I'm sure it went over 30 minutes, maybe even more than that. But they posted this little clip from that debate on the bonus show. And the reason I want to show this to you is the stunning dishonesty of Dennis Prager. Now, by the way, to the extent anybody on the left does not want to debate you, Dennis, which again, there's a lot of us who are fine doing that, This would be the reason why. Because there are instances where, whether you know it or not, I don't care if this is conscious or subconscious or whatever, you say things that are just beyond absurd. Just so ridiculous on its face that any reasonable person wouldn't even know where to steer the conversation after you make such a ridiculous claim. So anyway, let's watch the back and forth. This has to do with secularism, so, right up my alley here. Let's see what happens.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you're not in favor of secularism, so I wanted to ask about that. So I never understand what you folks mean when you say we shouldn't be a secular country. Do you think religion should rule us? What do you mean?
I think that we should have a secular government and a religious population, just as the founders did. That's why In God We Trust is one of the 3 mottos of our country.
Okay. Now, by the way, In God We Trust, that came to prominence during the Cold War. When we were trying...
Before, the national motto would be Il Pluribus Unum, or whatever it is in Latin, from one for all, or whatever it meant.
Kind of say F you to the Soviet Union, the godless, atheistic, communist country. We want to say F you, so we made In God We Trust became a big thing at the time. So, now, by the way, if that is his real position, I want a secular government and a religious population. Well, that's what we have now, right? Yep. And that's, 60, 70%, whatever it is of the country are Christian.
America's secular, but almost 70% of Americans are Christian. I think it was well over 80 to maybe 90% of Americans are religious in some regard.
But the government is secular, as dictated by our founding documents. If that was his position, okay, all right, then there's not going to be much of a debate. I mean, I would prefer maybe a secular government and a secular citizenry, but if I
mean, people can be secular but still be religious, which the majority of American liberals that are religious are. So I mean, we do have that, and of course there are countries in the world that are also secular, have a majority of religious people, but they're still secular too. You can be secular, still be religious. It's secularism just means more keep out of other people's lives, which religious liberals do. It's religious conservatives, on the other hand, that always try to meddle in other people's lives because they have a problem with it.
If I don't get that, I'm not going to try to change it by force. I think that's totally fine. Whatever.
I would
but watch the mental gymnastics he's about to do.
Liberal Christians
and we are now seeing the consequences in every area of life of the death of Christianity, and I say this as a religious Jew, the death of the Judeo-Christian value system, the death of the 10 Commandments, and the death of...
By the way, how many of the 10 Commandments are, ridiculous? How many of the 10 Commandments are certainly not on a list of 10 things you would put as, the most important rules? I think there's only, 3 or 4 of them that actually should be on the list, and a lot of them just get really goofy and silly. So, don't worship false gods or whatever.
None of your
don't
business.
Covet your neighbor's wife. If you're going to make a list of the 10 things, the most important 10 things, I mean, wouldn't you put, don't rape or, rape children? And wouldn't that go above and beyond? Don't have, consensual relations with your neighbor's wife? I'm not saying I'm pro relations with your neighbor's wife, right? But what I am saying is, on the list of 10 things, a lot of the stuff that's on that list wouldn't make it on that list.
I think adultery was one of the 10 commandments.
He acts like, it's the downfall of the 10 commandments, that's our problem.
I think
adultery was part of it.
I know thou shalt not kill is one of it, which is, yes, agree with that, but that's the only one off the top of my head I would agree with. But you don't need to be religious to agree that you shouldn't kill people.
Consequences in every area of life of the death of Christianity, and I say this as a religious Jew, the death of the Judeo-Christian value system, the death of the 10 Commandments, and the death of all the things that came with religion, meaning and community, and...
Okay.
You don't need to be religious to
meaning and community is not solely the realm of religion. Yes, there are a lot of people who find meaning and community from religion, and that's fine. But you can get meaning and community through a fucking sports league. You can get meaning and community through a job that you really like. You can get meaning and community through being an entrepreneur and trying to create your own thing from your art. You can get meaning and community from a hobby that you really enjoy. The idea that that's solely from religion is nonsense. And by the way, this idea of we're witnessing the problem now with turning away from religion. I was like, well, hold on now. The religion that he likes to suck off the most, even though he's Jewish, this guy, he likes to suck off Christianity. But there's wildly different interpretations of Christianity that are prominent. So, like in the black church, for example, there is a version of Christianity that is very liberal politically. And, you know, in the evangelical Christian church, it's the exact opposite. They're like conservative Republican
in the early 2000s,
and diehards about that. So you have the same religion, and people interpret it in vastly different ways. And so the idea that, like, well, we're turning away from that now, and that's what's leading to all this confusion.
There are different, like, sects of Christianity and other religions, like Catholicism, Protestantism, Anglicanism. There's so many different sects of Christianity in America, too, that disagree with each other. They're not, like, hardcore fundamentalists like Prager here.
Yep.
No, there was always confusion even within the church because you have widely different interpretations that can both be popular at the same time.
And then also, they're secular, too.
Moral absolutes among them.
Exactly.
The death of religious values is why we can now say there are more than two sexes, and that we shouldn't call kids boys and girls in schools anymore. We are living in the age...
Okay. Nobody says there's more than two sexes. People say there's more than two genders.
And gender
There's a difference between biological sex and gender.
Exactly.
Gender is a social construct.
A transgender person who's honest will admit, yes, I was born biologically male, if they're, for example, male to female. But their gender is female. So there's this difference between gender and sex, which is now, you know, a very common understanding of this issue, and it appears like Dennis Prager isn't even aware of that. And also the idea where, you know, you're not allowed to say boys and girls in schools anymore. Yeah. My guess is in 90 to 95% of schools in the country, nobody's going to have any problems if the teacher's like, all right, boys and girls, time to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
only care and
hyperbole. And again, so he talks about the downfall of Christianity. The first example he gives of, like, this is the problem is what? That we're now accepting trans people more? Okay, let's continue.
Moral and intellectual chaos because of the death of religion.
Okay, so poll just came out today, I think, actually. 61% of Republicans say we should be a Christian nation. But don't get them twisted. They're not saying, hey, just be Christian at home. 57% of them, of Republicans, say, no, we know it's unconstitutional. We know that it's not in the Constitution. We can't establish a religion, but we want to do it anyway. 61% say, no, we want it. So that seems to be establishing a religion, Christianity. Do you think 61% of Republicans are wrong?
Okay, so we covered this poll, by the way. Jang tried. I think the number was actually 62%, but maybe he's right.
I was actually thinking about covering this, but since it was covering here too, I decided to just talk about it here.
I'm wrong, I don't know. But look at what's going on there. 57% say, yes, it's unconstitutional for us to be a Christian nation. 62% say, but I want to be a Christian nation anyway. Look at what Dennis Prager is going to do with this information. This is astonishing.
They didn't say they want to establish a religion. They said they wanted a Christian country. I'd rather have a Christian country than a secular country, and I'm a Jew.
They didn't say they want to establish... That is exactly what they said. When they say we want to make this a Christian country, what does that mean? It means they want it to officially be a Christian country.
To be fair, though, Kyle, there will be some people that do say that when they refer to just be Christian, not necessarily force like Christian values on people. There are going to be people that do say that, and they think they just want people to like be Christian but still have like secular government and all that. But I don't trust the Republican fuckers in this poll though one bit. But that still is a thing though. But you got to also acknowledge that that is also reality too.
Not a secular country. Now they say we know it's unconstitutional, but that's what we want anyway. He's trying to weasel out of it and say no. They're just saying what I said at the beginning of this clip here when I argued I want a secular government but a Christian nation in terms of the percentages. That's not what they said. That is such a dishonest interpretation of that poll. Now, by the way, I'm going to go a step further because we covered the other day a different poll which showed, I think it was like 43% of evangelical Christians don't even believe in the divinity of Jesus. They think he's like a good teacher and a good philosopher, but they don't even think he's the Son of God. 43%. So there isn't even agreement on Jesus being God among evangelical Christians. But you know what there is agreement on? It's like 90% or more who say ban abortion, 90% or more who say like ban gay marriage, 90% or more who say like ban premarital sex. So what is evangelical Christianity in today's day and age? It is nothing but a deep commitment to conservative Republican politics, namely social policies, most importantly social policies. So
exactly.
When you have all these people, 62% say, I want a Christian nation. What they really mean is, I would like to enforce social conservatism on the rest of the population in the name of Christianity, which of course would be establishing Christianity. He's playing Weasley and acting like, no, that's not what they said, that's not what they believe. That's exactly what that poll means. He's being dishonest because he can't just admit, yeah, these people don't agree with me when I say I want a secular government and a Christian population. He's just being dishonest to protect his side because he's a political partisan hack.
And honestly, he probably deep down agrees with them too.
Okay, so help me understand what a Christian country means. Doesn't that mean you establish a religion, Christianity?
No, established. There was never an established religion in the country, and Christians aren't for it. I work.
They're not for it. The polls.
What do you think it means when 62% say I want a Christian nation? Are you actually going to try to make the argument? And he is. That no, they're saying what I'm saying. I want a secular government. They didn't say they want a secular government. They said they wanted a Christian nation. Oh my God, man.
Work with Christians. I know I work more with Christians than with Jews. My synagogue is Jews, but I work with Christians. I'm at churches all the time. I never heard one of them say, let's establish Christianity.
Well, I don't give a fuck what you heard or didn't hear. We're going off empirical data here. Empirical data.
What does it mean?
But Protestants believe deeply in the separation of church and state.
I don't see that at all.
The whole point of the poll is they do not believe in the separation of church and state. And he's like, no, they believe in it. Dishonest. Flat out dishonest.
It's not in the poll. 57% said, yeah, we know it's unconstitutional. They mean establish a religion. Now you're trying to make it like that the Republicans don't actually mean that. So what do they mean when they say we want a Christian nation, not like the one that's in the Constitution?
Jake, you know what they mean. What they mean is, in the name of Christianity, we want to ban abortion. We want to ban gay marriage. They would even maybe go as far as banning premarital sex, because that was a huge belief in that poll. Mm-hmm. They want it to be officially a Christian nation. They want to prioritize Christianity over other religions, and perhaps even grant certain rights to Christianity that other religions might not have. Prayer in school, for example, right? Pray in school in the name of a Christian God. This is the stuff they mean.
Right. I don't know the constitutional part. This is brand new to me, so I can't comment. I can only tell you that when Christians say they want a Christian nation, they want a nation that is governed by Christian moral principles and not the moral chaos that we see today. And I am a supporter of that notion.
Moral chaos that we see today. See, in Dennis Prager's eyes, it is quote-unquote moral chaos if you say we should allow gay marriage. It is moral chaos if you say, like, hey, physician-assisted suicide for a terminally ill cancer patient who's in extreme pain, that's actually, it's the right thing to do to allow them to choose for themselves if they want to end their lives. It's moral chaos to say, let's have a moderate abortion policy like Roe versus Wade, where it's a woman's right to choose, and then the state can regulate it, and late term can be banned, but we have a giant window where you're allowed to choose. He would say that's moral chaos.
Yeah,
no, quite the contrary here, Dennis Prager. You get a better, more accurate, more empirical, more fair, more reasonable moral system derived from secularism and humanism than you do from any sort of religious doctrine.
Progressives.
Government means the state.
And
but anyway, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't believe in Christ, just for the record. I am not a Christian, and they are not forcing, and they never did force anybody to believe in Christ. Even when they were really in power, they never forced one American to accept Christ.
When they take government policy and they try to make it in line with their interpretation of their religion, that absolutely is forcing their religion on others. Yeah, perhaps they haven't in decades or more than that done an Inquisition or Crusade style thing where at the the end of a sword they try to force you to believe X, Y, or Z or convert. But if you do something like ban gay marriage or ban contraception in the name of your religion, that is an authoritarian belief that you're forcing onto other people.
That's a pretty damn good record.
That's because it's not constitutional. You're making it seem like they had the option.
Yeah, that's another good point.
So I want to ask...
Well, wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
You just said if they have power, you're afraid, correct?
Well, first of all, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But Dennis, yeah, I'm worried that your dear leader, Donald Trump, doesn't believe in democracy. He's going to, he said he had a system to put in fake electors. Now you've got 61% of Republicans say, screw it, let's just be a Christian nation. Let's establish, basically be run by a Christian mullah, okay? And so do you think Trump wouldn't say, I'm that mullah and we're not having democracy? He'd do that in a second. You think that he cares about the rest of us? A lifelong con man who only cares about his own power and wealth. If you can't see that, Dennis, you're being purposely blind.
More evangelical Christians believe in Donald Trump then think Jesus is the Son of God. I'm not kidding. We just covered the poll the other day. It's about 80% of the evangelical Christian community supports Trump. It was 43% say Jesus is a good philosopher, he's a good teacher, but he's not actually the Son of God. So that's, whatever, crunch the numbers on that. More support Trump than believe Jesus is God. So yeah, is it a fear that these guys have this super hardcore authoritarian far-right social issues value set, and that's what they define as their religion? And I'm sure if you crunch the numbers on, hey, who's most likely to support overturning the 2020 election, it's going to be a giant majority of evangelicals who say that's what they want. So this is all under the banner of we want a Christian nation, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene wears it on her sleeve. I'm a Christian nationalist. She also wants to put Donald Trump back in office and toss out Joe Biden based on nothing.
Sleep blind.
The man was president for 4 years. He was far more open than Joe Biden and the Democrats are, who are using the FBI to suppress dissent and who are using the New York Times and CNN. This is the least free America has been in its history in terms of free speech and freedom of dissent. And it's
oh my God. Trump literally said we should open up the libel laws to sue the media when they write bad stories about him. He said he wants to punish flag burning with up to a year in prison. Like, what are you talking about? And the whole FBI thing, dude, he's caught red-handed committing so many crimes. This is the FBI with a rare W. And he's actually, political persecution. Jesus Christ. So anyway, look, you get the gist of it. We don't need to keep watching the rest of this, but this is why it's hard, man. It's hard to have a conversation with somebody like Dennis Prager, because when you're talking with somebody where there's like literally no common ground, or like 5% common ground, it's tough. Because then you have to take issue with like every sentence out of his mouth. And that might appear like nitpicking, and it might not be good optics, but it's also like necessary for accuracy's sake to be like, you're wrong about that, and like you're insane, right? But anyway, there you have it. I'm just amazed by how brazen he was with that lie, where he talks about like, no, they don't want a Christian nation, even though they literally said to pollsters they want a Christian nation. All right, dude. Exactly. All right, dude. Go with that argument.
God,
all right, guys. That is a show.
I hate when Kyle does those ending intros. But yeah, we got to say about Prager being an absolute moron, as always.
It's no surprise.
And a lying cunt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I finally found I didn't actually find the correct video. I found one from Second Thought, but some reason I feel like we talked about this before, because we covered a lot of Second Thought videos over the last few years. So I think I actually might have to hold off the Finland ends homelessness until later on. And plus, this video is getting close to 2 hours long now, so I think it's time we cover
like I said, well, you had to put one of those videos over the next episode.
But anyways, time to get to the final one.
Yep.
And I never know how to pronounce this channel, but we've covered their videos a lot over the last few years or so. And I think we even did a video on them because they've done multiple videos on climate change, and they did I think, honestly, because I saw the whole video, I think they've done a little bit way too optimistic for my liking. They did a video titled, "We Will Fix Climate Change," and they talked about the ways to actually combat it. And it honestly sounds a little too good news for my belief in it. But let's see, maybe they'll prove me wrong the second time.
Our home is burning. Rapid climate change is destabilizing our world. It seems our emissions will not fall quickly enough to avoid runaway warming, and we may soon hit tipping points that will lead to the collapse of ecosystems and our civilization.
Which Kyle's called about too. I thought about doing it as a video earlier, but I decided to cover this one instead first.
Scientists, activists, and much of the younger generation urge action. It appears most politicians are not committed to doing anything meaningful, while the fossil fuel industry still works actively against change.
All those are true.
It seems humanity can't overcome its greed and obsession with short-term profit and personal gain to save itself. And so for many, the future looks grim and hopeless. Young people feel particularly anxious and depressed. Instead of looking ahead to a lifetime of opportunity, they wonder if they will even have a future, or if they should bring kids into this world. It's an age of doom and hopelessness, and giving up seems the only sensible thing to do. But that's not true. You are not doomed. Humanity is not doomed.
I think we are in the time being, but we shouldn't give up either.
Yeah.
Despite the seriousness of the situation, for years positive trends have accumulated, and there is finally some good news and a clear path towards our collective climate goals. Welcome to our TED Talk. Please watch this video to the end, check out our detailed sources afterwards to learn more. Okay, let's start with the scariest things. Cancelling the apocalypse. Some of the most widely shared stories about climate change are that it is an existential threat, the end of human civilization, and maybe even our own extinction event, and that it's basically unavoidable now. But what does science actually say? As of 2022, the global average temperature has risen 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial.
Without Earth's magnetic field, Earth would already be on its way to a Venusian-style runaway greenhouse. Remember, Venus was. Remember that's the ultimate example of what greenhouse gases can do. Remember, Venus was kind of like Earth, maybe a bit warmer.
I know.
Actually, probably not much warmer because back then the sun was quite a bit dimmer.
I know Mars used to be like Earth.
It's now a 465 degrees Celsius hellhole.
Yeah, and remember, Mars used to also be kind of like Earth too, with water, and then evaporate away.
Shut off.
Limiting warming to 1.
Mars is the other thing is that it's it wasn't big enough, so its magnetic field froze and it became a freeze-dried desert.
0.5 degrees was the most ambitious goal of the Paris Agreement, but we are not likely to meet it. Already with the warming we have today, hot places will get hotter, wet places wetter, and the risk and strength of extreme weather events increase significantly. Warming beyond 2 degrees makes all of these extremes more extreme. Extreme weather events more common, with more ecosystems under major pressure. Some will not survive. At 3 degrees, significant parts of Earth, especially in developing countries, might become unable to feed their populations. Heat waves will become a major global issue. Large-scale natural systems...
that already is the case, like, in America, Europe, as we covered a while ago, and even China, too, recently.
...will break down.
Big chunks big chunks of where 80% of Australia live is like less than 10, 15 metres above sea level. Hell, even my home city, Adelaide, a good chunk of that could easily get flooded.
Have you guys dealt with, like, heat waves recently?
Not in the last few years, thanks to the La Nina, but
that's changing.
I'm really scared. I'm going to say it right now.
Which El Nino's coming up.
If we do, once it switches to El Nino, the first El Nino, and because it's going to be several years as well, likely, Australia is going to absolutely obliterate every single temperature record that Australia has had. A few years ago, we've now got about half a dozen cities in South Australia that have hit exactly the all-time record, 50.7. Next,
I can only imagine how
El Nino we get, because we're heading into our third La Nina in a row, and so when El Ninos return, we're going to, every single one of those records are going to be demolished.
Frequency of hurricanes, fires, and
I actually want to talk about El Nino La Nina if we ever got to the next video that Kyle talked about too.
And droughts will further increase and cause trillions in damage.
Hurricanes for us too.
Poor regions and subsistence farmers will be hit the hardest. Hundreds of millions of people will need to leave their homes. In the 4 to 8 degree range, the apocalypse begins. The hothouse Earth, where things change so quickly that it may become unable to support our large human population and billions may perish, leaving the rest on a hostile alien planet. A decade ago, for lack of action and perspective, many scientists assumed a 4+ degree world was our future, and a lot of public communication focused on exactly this future path.
And unfortunately, all the stuff I've seen says that's more likely to have that than us be under 1.5 degree rise.
Yeah, you look at what was it? You look at for example, they're reckoning at this point that if we're lucky, we're going to get the Eocene thermal maximum, and if we're and if we don't do anything quick, at minimum, we're going to wind up in a Permian. And as I said, the only there's like only one or two things that we won't do where eventually it could get to the point where you'd have a near Venus-style runaway greenhouse.
All right, so
it wouldn't happen on Earth. Humans probably wouldn't quite be able to do it.
Yeah, we covered that before.
Yeah,
but now
it's not that far off.
But now, here's where they say all the good things now.
A lot of public communication focused on exactly this future path. Luckily, it's much less likely that this version of the apocalypse will come to pass. If current climate policies stagnate, we're likely to end up with warming of around 3 degrees Celsius by 2100, which is scary and tragic and far from acceptable.
And from what I remember reading up, that would probably be way sooner than 2100.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is that there's a aerosol effect that we've actually already gone past the 2 degrees. Like, we've basically missed the 1.5 by about a decade and a half, and that we're headed for something like anywhere from 4 to 10 degrees warming eventually.
Yep,
which, for the record, the 10 right at the top would actually be dangerously close to a pseudo runaway greenhouse where a significant portion of Earth's oceans go into the atmosphere. Not like all of it, but like a big chunk.
It's actually good news.
And then it radiate out with the clouds. Almost all of Earth would be covered in cloud, and then it'd be like pretty much equilibrium at that point.
And far from acceptable. But this is actually good news. How? In the last decade, we've seen enough progress that most scientists now think that we have likely avoided apocalyptic climate change. Although
Now, do you believe that, though?
Absolutely not.
I'm
we're
very
still
skeptical,
able
too.
to wipe out. Humanity's still on track to wipe ourselves out by the end of next century.
Potential risk still remains. We can pretty confidently say that humanity isn't going anywhere. Civilization might have to change, but it will endure. Which begs the question, what has changed over the last 10 years, and is this really good news? The invisible shift. You probably know this story. The last decade has been an immense failure for climate policies around the world. Instead of passing comprehensive, binding bills that would meaningfully reduce emissions, we mostly did nothing. A lost decade with one negative record after another. And this story is true, and it's one reason why so many people are giving up. But it is not the whole picture. Despite the lack of climate policies and ongoing lobbying and misinformation campaigns from the fossil fuel industries, there was a lot of progress. Let's go back 20 years to see why today is so different. Between 2000 and 2010, greenhouse gas emissions had grown by 24%, 3 times as much as the increase in the previous decade. Subsidies for fossil fuels aimed at promoting economic growth caused a colossal increase in their consumption. For developing countries like China and India, coal was the cheapest fuel for growth, while rich countries showed little interest in changing their ways. In 2010, many people expected these trends to continue. Instead of decreasing fossil fuel use, its consumption would rise. The next decade turned out to be very different though. First of all, coal burning in developing countries like India has slowed down or leveled off like in China, and it's plummeted in rich countries like the UK and US. Since 2015, 3/4 of planned coal plants have been cancelled and 44 countries have committed to stop building them. 10 years ago, that would have seemed like wishful thinking, but today we can say with confidence, coal is dying.
Yeah, but will it be fast enough, though? That's the problem. And as the thing showed, overall, India still was going up, and China's like flatline for now, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be in the future. But in the end, they're not going down like America.
Up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, they look to have kind of stabilized that.
But yeah, they're not going down like America and Europe are. And that's the problem with China. Like I said before, when the West and America were the main emitters, the temperatures were going up, but it was still like pretty slow. Then once China industrialized, then it basically doubled the emissions, which made it really rapidly rise since the 90s. And then you got India coming up, and then you got Africa still coming up too. That's just a big concern.
It's just not competitive anymore. Because technologies we thought would remain expensive matured rapidly instead. Renewable electricity has shown explosive progress. In a mere decade, wind energy got 3 times cheaper. Solar electricity is now 10 times cheaper.
Also thanks to government subsidies, which we've been cutting down on subsidies for fossil fuels too, which is based.
Cheaper than coal or any other fossil fuel burning power plant, despite the massive subsidies and global infrastructure propping up fossil fuels. 25 times more solar and nearly 5 times more wind electricity is produced today compared with 10 years ago, which is of course not nearly enough. One of the biggest obstacles is the variability of their power output. Renewables need a lot of energy storage to be a reliable power source, like expensive batteries. Amazingly, battery prices have decreased by 97% in the past 30 years, 60% in the last decade alone, which will serve all kinds of green technology like electric cars. You might say, well, that's great, but didn't Kurzgesagt's last climate video say that while wind and solar are nice, we need nothing less than a fundamental transition of our global industrial system?
Which we do.
Yes, but luckily the shift goes beyond just the energy sector. Throughout the economy, people are working on improving current technology to lower emissions. We're rapidly replacing old incandescent light bulbs with LEDs that are 10 times more efficient. In 2020, about 7 out of 10 new cars in Norway were electric or hybrid. In 2021, it was already 8 out of 10.
Which is awesome.
And the list goes on, from electric heating and better insulation to ships traveling at half speed to save fuel. Wherever you look, you find scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs trying to solve some aspect of climate change. Enormous amounts of human ingenuity are being brought to bear on this problem, with more and more people deciding to prioritize preventing rapid climate change. Solutions for low-carbon production of cement, electronics, and steel, and innovations like
like cement making, steel smelting, and agriculture are like some of the biggest emitters in the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the problem is, we really can't do anything to fix that because we need cement, we need steel, and we need to eat. So we need to figure some ways to lower that now because that we can't just get rid of.
Artificial meat and carbon capture are in the works. The more of these technologies we deploy, the cheaper new and better technology gets. The cheaper they get, the more people use them, and so on. We can see the impact already. The domestic CO2 output of rich countries is falling without a major recession. Since the year 2000, the EU as a whole shows a 21% decrease, Italy 28%, the UK 35%, Denmark 43%.
21% reduction in EU CO2 emissions in 22 years. That is huge. Because the EU produces a lot. Italy down like, what was it, over 20%? The UK down over 30%. That's pretty huge too. Like, I think we talked about it a while ago. Like, Europe, yes, Europe actually their emissions have been going down drastically in the last few decades. America is, like, slowly going down, but that was more because of the Great Recession. Like, it was going up, then it flatlined when the Great Recession happened, and then I think it's going down, but it's, like, slow. The problem, though, is, like, China, India, and Africa come up where it's going up.
But the best news may be that emissions are no longer necessarily coupled with the economic growth. In the past, this was an inconvenient truth. To get richer, you had to emit more, which led to fierce arguments between developing and developed countries about the fairness of reducing emissions while their populations were still poor. But in the last decade, we've seen that it is possible to increase prosperity without increasing emissions. Emissions in the Czech Republic dropped 13%, while their GDP grew by 27%. France reduced their CO2 emissions by 14%, while
France is big because France is a pretty big emitter.
Increasing GDP by 15%. Romania saw an 8% decrease and 35% growth. And even the largest economy on Earth, the USA, decreased emissions by 4% while growing their GDP by 26%.
A 4% decrease in emissions by America is huge. Because the stats I mentioned before, last I remember checking, the biggest emitter of CO2s by country is China, #1, with 28% of the world's emissions, and then it's America at 23%. I actually did the math on that when I first saw this video. Do you know what minus 4% of 23% would be? About 1%. So 1 whole percent of the world's CO2 emissions alone in 10 years have been reduced because of America's reduction. That, even if it's a small number, it's still huge.
Yeah.
Some of you make
it honestly might even be bigger overall than France's 14% reduction, because France is nowhere near as big of an emitter as America.
We call this a numbers trick. That rich countries are just exporting emissions to poorer nations by moving the dirty parts of their economies like manufacturing. But even when we account for all of our imported goods, the numbers still look positive. It's no longer a matter of having to choose between prosperity and the climate, as it seemed to be.
And remember when I said earlier about America needs to do like our own Belt and Road Initiative? We should do that specifically in Africa and help promote green energy, because if they're going to rise up economically, they have to go green. They cannot do it how we did.
A decade ago. Developing countries will profit from that because as rich countries pay for the expensive development of green technologies, they can adopt them more cheaply. They can skip most of the high emission phase that today's rich countries went through. We are at the point where not decarbonizing is a bad business decision. And we haven't even really talked about solutions like carbon capture. In 2000, it didn't really exist. In 2022, that technology does exist and costs around $600 to remove 1 ton of CO2 from the atmosphere.
Yeah, because this is, honestly, this might actually be more of like the more important thing, carbon capture. Because even if we stop emitting CO2, it's still in the atmosphere for, I've seen estimates range from hundreds of years to thousands of years up to millions of years. So we got to get this stuff out of the atmosphere until we get back to 270 parts per million like it was before the Industrial Revolution. And it's got to be like a temporary thing, because if we keep going after that, then the Earth will start cooling to the point where we start having global cooling. We got to get back down to what it was. Although I honestly am a little worried that if we did like a rapid like decarbonization, I wonder if that would negatively affect Earth in a whole bunch of other ways too.
I think I think what we might cop is a temporary is that due to the pollutants, like we'd actually hit, we'd probably, we'd have to like go negative carbon emissions to start cooling the Earth, but we'd probably go for the because all the aerosols and that in the atmosphere are actually slightly masking a little bit of the warming.
Yeah.
And so, as that starts clearing out, you could potentially have a little bit more warming.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't be too much, and be more like a faster thing of the peak than.
Because I wonder if we get rid of it like very fast, if it'll have like negative climate shit in the other directions and such. If we just do it like maybe more slow back downward.
I don't think so. I think it might be a short-term bit of warming. But remember, we've got those several crazy tipping points that we're hitting already, so.
In and the technology matures and begins to scale, it's likely that these costs will plummet over the next few decades. So everything's fine then? Well, let's not get carried away. All of these processes are great, but not nearly fast enough. We're still doing way too little, and technology will not magically solve everything. We need to use fewer resources and use them longer, design consumer goods that are repairable and durable, and decrease our energy requirements.
That requires
we need
regulation.
Much better infrastructure, agriculture, and cities. It will still be hard work, especially to get the right policies passed and enacted. But for the first time ever, there are a few trend lines pointing solidly in the right direction.
Like, I mean, I always thought that in the future we are going to eventually have like a zero-emission world. The problem is, are we going to do it fast enough to prevent the worst things of climate change happening? That's the real problem. We're going to eventually get to zero emissions, but will it be fast enough? That's the problem.
And now imagine if all of this was achieved without proper financial and political support, and despite fossil fuel lobbying. Just think what humanity can do when climate change finally gets the political attention and funding it needs.
I mean, green energy actually is getting subsidized a lot. Like solar and wind, they are being subsidized, and fossil fuels are not being subsidized as much. So they already kind of are getting like government support. It's just not enough yet.
So is it okay to feel hopeful again? The situation is still dire and serious, so what's the point of focusing on this side of the story? The trap of hopelessness. Climate change can feel overwhelming and make your future seem bleak. The sadness and hopelessness that many people feel is real and very destructive because it causes apathy. Apathy that is only serving the fossil fuel industry, that is still delaying change however it can. In a sense, they have weaponized hopelessness. We are now in Phase 4 in the public debate about rapid climate change action. Phase 1 was, climate change is not real.
Which
Phase 2 was, climate change is real, but not caused by humans. Phase 3 was, climate change may be caused by humans, but it's not that bad. Phase 4 is, climate change is no longer avoidable. We are doomed, and it doesn't matter what we do. If we want the world to change, we first need to believe that change is possible, and we have an abundance of evidence that it is. Changes to our industrial system are gaining momentum. Technology gets better and cheaper. Climate change has become a key issue in most free elections. As more and more younger people move into influential positions, they prioritize climate change and work on new solutions. In 2022, most governments not only acknowledge it, but set their own net zero goals in democratic and autocratic countries. The results of years of fighting a steep uphill battle are now clearly visible. The pressure needs to keep increasing to make sure that the promises made today are actually kept.
This is like something that Harry should be listening when it comes to like getting progressives in power, because this doomerism actually is more of a thing with like progressives that like completely went doomerism after Bernie lost again. Like you have to fight no matter what. Like here's the main point, because I'm sure they're going to bring it up too. Yes, we have made progresses towards climate change, and we got to keep up the pressure. But let's also not like deny the reality. We're still near like the absolute worst case scenarios, and honestly, we're getting to the point where I think even if we did everything needed, we probably would still face the worst case scenario no matter what. But you have to try no matter what. You always have to keep fighting.
Climate doomerism is the equivalent of giving up, even though you can still prevent not just the worst case, but also mitigate most of the bad things, make changes in time to adapt better, and prevent the poorest from suffering. That is why hopelessness and apathy are so dangerous. If the last, in many ways, wasted decade has shown anything, then it's that progress is being made, and that dire scenarios are just predictions, not our sealed fate. As of 2022, based on current global policies, we will end up in a 3 degrees world.
Which is not good.
Now it's our job to yet again prove the predictions wrong, despite how serious and urgent things are. To turn that 3 degrees into a 2 degrees, and then see where we can go from there. For that,
2
we
degrees
need hope.
Also would be really bad too.
And we hope we gave you that today, at least a little. That you feel that things...
The ultimate goal is we need to get back down to the Paris Climate Agreement of 1.5. And even if it got up to 1.5, which we're getting near, even that would still probably be really bad.
...are serious, but also that you have a future. That you could have kids without dooming them or the world.
But it's not
that
like
taking action today is worth it. And that despite powerful industries doing everything to delay it, society is changing. If you need a more concrete roadmap of what you can do personally, we're working on a follow-up video to talk about that in greater detail.
Unfortunately, you guys covered it before in that one video we covered. Personally, there's nothing people personally could do to combat. It's a government and society thing. Individuals not going to be able to do anything.
Doomerism, inactivity, and weaponized hopelessness are the only trump cards left for the powers that don't want change. Don't let them win. We're still excited about the future, and we think one of the best things you can do to keep your optimism and curiosity up is to learn new things.
Alright, so that's when it gets her promotion. So, what do you have to say about that video?
Probably a little optimistic, but
you kind of broke up there. It won't be like... It's not like, oh, the human race is going to go extinct, but it's like, we're still in big trouble. It's not guaranteed that we'll survive. And remember the Fermi paradox? About where the filter might be? That big filter bottleneck, we're currently in it. And at this stage, we're going to be spat out back the negative end. Back the stage. Yeah, I think that video was being a little bit too optimistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we can only hope, because in the end, we still got to fight climate change no matter what. Even if, no matter what we do, the worst case is going to happen. We still have to try it no matter what. Mm-hmm. Alright, guys. So that will wrap it up here. See you guys next time.
Next time.